A carriage rattles down a dusty path, bringing a sudden storm of chaos to a quiet countryside home. From inside the vehicle, a young blonde girl watches in silent confusion as a woman wearing a massive teal hat demands someone come inside immediately. Melody slumbers peacefully on a wooden windowsill, completely unaware of the furious shouts echoing through the house searching for her. Her eyes snap open in sheer panic as a harsh scream of her name shatters her quiet moment. Melody instantly scrambles to her feet, calling out in desperate obedience to her furious mother. Before her lies a glittering treasure trove of stolen luxury shimmering with gold and precious pink gems. The room is crowded with pristine storage boxes, the loot harvested from a wealthy family's tragic carriage accident in the storm. The cruel mother dances with joy, celebrating her dark fortune while Melody watches from the doorway, her stomach churning with dread. The mother boasts about her royal loot, completely ignoring a terrified, weeping blonde girl clutching a teddy bear in the corner. Staring at the captive child, Melody breaks out in a cold sweat, unable to share her mother's sick excitement. Melody realizes she has been reincarnated into a tragic novel as the slave merchant's daughter, and the horrific first chapter has just begun. Young Loretta stands helpless, a precious target destined to endure immense suffering under their roof. The mother casually plans to fashion a cheap dress from discarded scraps, showing her complete lack of empathy for the stolen child. As her mother drags the weeping child up the stairs, Melody follows behind, her heart heavy with mounting guilt. Melody nervously points out the extreme danger of harboring stolen children and goods from powerful capital nobles. The mother scoffs at her worries, confidently declaring that wealthy nobles will barely miss one of their many treasures. But a chilling truth hangs in the air. This little girl isn't just any treasure. She is the Duke's only beloved daughter. Dismissing the gravity of her crime with a smug smile, the mother remains completely unbothered by the looming threat. She bursts into wicked laughter, mockingly underestimating the power and fury of the nobility. Leaving the child in her room, the cruel merchant commands Melody to watch over her and prevent any escape attempts. With no power to resist, Melody reluctantly agrees, her eyes downcast in sorrow for the poor captive. Alone with her thoughts, Melody is pulled back into the painful memories of her own past life. She remembers crying out to an indifferent mother in her past life, seeking comfort that she would never receive. Her desperate pleas were met with cold rejection, leaving her isolated in a world void of warmth and smiles. Cruel, dismissive words echoed in her mind, cementing her childhood trauma of neglect. Over the years, Melody slowly adapted to her new reality, realizing she had to let go of her painful past memories to survive. As she grew, the fragmented pieces of her past began to align, revealing a shocking connection to her current life. She drifted into a deep sleep, her mind processing the terrifying truth of the world she now inhabited. She remembers her past self as a helpless child, wandering through vast, empty fields in search of love. The shadow of a happy family she never had loomed over her subconscious, a painful reminder of her deepest desires. A recurring memory of worn, wrinkled shoes haunted her, symbolizing her endless journey of searching for belonging. She wept bitterly, craving just a single person to comfort her and tell her everything would be okay. Silent tears fell in the darkness as she grieved for the unloved child she used to be. Yet, amidst the lingering sadness, a single spark of joy remained anchored in her memories. That joy was reading, a passion that allowed her to memorize every detail of the novel she had reincarnated into. She knew the entire plot of the story, from its dramatic beginning to the final world-altering crisis. She knew the destined path of the beautiful protagonist, who was fated to rise above her tragic childhood. A romantic and glorious ending awaited the heroine, but only after surviving the horrors of her youth. Though she loved the story, Melody found herself deeply drawn to the heroine's childhood struggles, mirroring her own lonely past. The tale began with a horrific carriage accident in the dark woods, stripping the young heroine of her mother. Captured by a ruthless slave merchant, the traumatized heroine was forced into a living nightmare as the story's first villain emerged. The young protagonist faced relentless, cruel torment designed solely to evoke anger and heartbreak from the readers. Ultimately, the terrifying Duke would arrive to enact absolute, brutal vengeance upon the slave merchants, wiping them out entirely. But Melody's detached appreciation of the novel shattered instantly when reality collided with the fiction. Standing in the bustling market, Melody drops her newspapers in absolute horror as the truth hits her like a physical blow. A shocking headline in the Daily News makes her realize that the tragic story she read isn't just a fantasy anymore. The locations, the noble names, and her own identity perfectly align with the doomed characters of the novel. Melody is the villain's daughter, destined to be brutally executed alongside her mother when the Duke's wrath finally descends. Desperate to change their fate, Melody confronts her arrogant mother, begging her to stop her illegal human trafficking. She desperately warns her mother to quit the slave trade before the Duke's blade finds them, but her pleas are met with furious denial. An enraged scream echoes through the silent house as the cruel mother furiously threatens to throw Melody out. Though her heartless mother refuses to change, Melody realizes there is still one desperate way to survive. She knows her only path to safety is securing a close bond with the kidnapped heroine. It sounds simple enough, but winning over a deeply traumatized child is incredibly difficult. Suddenly, the heartless mother storms in, demanding Melody tend to the kidnapped girl immediately. Leaving a chilling threat in her wake, the mother storms off, leaving Loretta shivering in terror. Waving off the child's suffering with a sneer, the heartless woman exits the room. Watching silently from the doorway, a wave of deep pity washes over Melody's heart. Step by tentative step, Melody approaches the trembling child, gently calling her name. Smiling warmly, Melody explains how she discovered her identity from her small necklace. She softly validates her name, attempting to pierce through her defensive walls. But the overwhelmed young girl only responds with fragile, trembling whimpers. Realizing how terrified she is, Melody decides to take it slow and back away. She gently sets the warm soup on the wooden floor, urging her to eat. Slowly backing out, Melody quietly hopes the young girl will find the strength to eat. The savory aroma of the hot broth catches the starving child's attention. Slowly and cautiously, the tiny white bundle begins crawling toward the tray. Peeking out from her blanket, Loretta reaches out, unaware Melody is secretly watching. Watching her take a bite, Melody sighs in pure, heartfelt relief. When Loretta suddenly spots her, she freezes in absolute comical panic. As night wraps around the quiet house, a fragile peace settles. Showing incredible kindness, Melody selflessly offers her own warm bed to Loretta. Clutching her teddy bear tightly, the young girl stands there in quiet hesitation. Melody steps closer, her eyes soft with comfort and understanding. Looking at the small child, Melody's heart breaks for her endless suffering. It is a tragic fate for such a tiny, innocent child to endure. She remembers the horrific path the heroine was fated to walk. Melody watches over her protectively as the exhausted girl finally drifts off. Even in her sleep, painful tears slip down the young girl's cheeks. Hearing her soft whimpers, Melody gently calls out to soothe her. As she reaches out to comfort her, the startled girl gasps. Melody clasps her hands, fully aware of the delicate situation they are in. She reminds herself of her tragic and inescapable reality in this world. To this sweet child, she is still the daughter of a ruthless slave trader. A brand new day dawns, bringing a fresh chance to rewrite their doomed future. Melody carries a tray of warm drinks, her eyes widening in surprise. Loretta sits silently at the table, clutching her bear in quiet caution. Believing Loretta is finally opening up, Melody's joy is shattered by her mother's scream. The furious woman demands she return instantly, pulling Melody away from her breakthrough. Melody gently places the steaming milk down, advising the young girl, "I'm just a language model and can't help with that." Answering her mother's loud summons, Melody steps out as Loretta watches her leave. Slipping through the door, Melody casts one last worried glance backward. Outside, a heavy storm begins to rage, casting a dark shadow over the night. Staring at the darkening sky, Melody notices the thick, gloomy rain clouds gathering. Pressing her hand against the cold glass, she quietly prays for no thunder. Sudden, frantic footsteps echo down the hall, catching Melody completely off guard. She swings the door open to find a trembling, shadow-faced Loretta. Desperate for safety, the frightened girl leaps forward and hugs Melody tightly. Melody stands frozen in utter shock, completely stunned by this unexpected embrace. Trembling violently under her blanket, the traumatized heroine continues to weep as the storm rages. A chilling realization strikes as Melody gazes at the bed, deeply concerned that her mother has already begun to torment the young girl. Hoping to bring some comfort to the stifling room, she quickly slides the window open to let a refreshing breeze inside. But just as she turns, she suddenly remembers that the harsh rain and wind outside will only wither the delicate leaves. Her heart drops in absolute horror when she looks back at the bed and sees the poor blonde girl shivering violently under her blanket. Panicking, she quickly pulls the dark curtain shut, wondering if keeping the window closed is the only way to shield her. Standing in the dimly lit room, a sense of deep unease washes over her as she begins to piece together a dark memory. She remembers her adoptive mother bragging about her wicked luck in finding a crashed carriage from the auction house during a storm. The grim memory of that fateful rain-slicked night flashes back, showing the shattered wooden carriage abandoned in the dark woods. Back in the present, the relentless sound of the pouring rain continues to trigger the poor blonde girl's trauma. Looking down in silent contemplation, Melody is determined to find a way to soothe the child's deep-seated fear. Peeking out from beneath her heavy white blanket, the frightened blonde girl quietly asks if the storm is terrifying to her too. With a comforting smile, Melody confesses her own fear of thunder and explains her secret trick of covering her ears to block it out. She playfully raises her hands to demonstrate how simple it is to block out the scary sounds of the storm. Touched by this unexpected kindness, the young blonde girl tears up, looking at her savior with wide, hopeful blue eyes. Gently reaching out, Melody clasps the little girl's hands to reassure her that she is no longer alone in the dark. In a tender moment of pure warmth, she gently cups the young child's ears, shielding her from the roaring thunder outside. Outside, the rain-slicked green leaves sway gently, framing a sudden shift in the quiet bedroom's atmosphere. Safe in each other's warmth, the two girls share a peaceful, sparkling moment of genuine comfort and relief. Smiling warmly, Melody softly asks the little girl if the soothing trick is actually helping to quiet the storm. The blonde girl looks up in sheer wonder, amazed that the terrifying sound of the rain has suddenly grown so faint. Though the child admits she can still hear it a little, Melody playfully teases her, easing the heavy tension in the room. As the storm rages on outside, the two young girls finally drift off into a peaceful sleep, huddled close together in the single bed. Waking slightly in the quiet night, Melody gently whispers Loretta's name, wondering if she is still asleep. Surprised by the sudden call, Loretta opens her bright blue eyes, sleepily questioning what is wrong. Reassuring her companion that everything is fine, Melody sleepily comments on the brief nature of their current situation. In a cute, sleepy exchange, the two girls bicker softly under the warm glow of a single candle by the bedside table. With a gentle pat on the head, Melody lulls the young girl back to sleep, determined to protect her from any lingering nightmares. As the rain pours outside, she whispers a soft lullaby, urging the little one to let go of her fears and rest. Meanwhile, far away in a grand, sunlit study, a mysterious, dark-haired man sits silently at his desk, focused on his paperwork. The quiet room is filled with tension as the elegant man pauses, sensing a long-awaited update is finally arriving. Suddenly, a guard steps into the library and addresses the stern man as the Duke, breaking the heavy silence. The guard urgently reports that they have finally located the highly secluded hiding spot they were searching for. Hearing the crucial news, the Duke slowly puts down his writing quill, his hand tensing with absolute resolve. He stands up abruptly, his dark, ornate cloak billowing behind him as he prepares to take immediate action. With sharp, commanding eyes, the Duke orders his men to prepare the horses immediately, ready to set out into the storm. A magical green-winged fairy presents a special announcement seeking new allies to help translate their grand tales. Sometime later, a small, chubby hand carefully grips a red pencil, scribbling letters onto a sheet of paper. With a bright, beaming smile, Loretta proudly holds up her crayon drawing, happily presenting it to Melody. Melody's eyes light up with joy as she praises the young girl's wonderful artwork, utterly charmed by the sweet gesture. To reward her hard work, Melody happily presents a warm, freshly baked wheat cake on a plate as a special gift. Overjoyed by the delicious treat, the sweet blonde girl happily takes a massive, satisfying bite of the cake. Melody happily suggests that they play a game of house together once they finish practicing their letters. Loretta insists on being the older sister, leaving Melody amused and slightly exasperated by being designated as the baby. While watching her companion, Melody falls into deep thought, determined to find out what is truly bothering the young child. When Melody asks who will play the role of the mother, Loretta innocently admits she knows absolutely nothing about mothers. A sudden wave of shock hits Melody as she looks at the oblivious young girl munching on her cookie. Melody realizes with growing dread that the original novel never mentioned Roberta losing her memories of her own mother. Her train of thought is interrupted when Loretta suddenly asks her to help read the letters written at the bottom of a picture. Looking down at the old drawing on the floor, Melody translates the letters while Loretta points out a cool house to hide in. Staring at the sweet girl, Melody promises herself that Loretta will soon return to the beautiful home where she truly belongs. Loretta innocently questions if she will ever return to her safe home. Loretta's sudden invitation to go home together catches Melody completely off guard. Forced to lie, Melody awkwardly laughs and claims she is already home. Staring at the child's tearful eyes, Melody's heart breaks under her villainous lineage. Loretta suddenly stands up, determined to argue against Melody's tragic claim. Loretta bursts into dramatic tears, forcing a panicked Melody to desperately quiet her. The furious mother slams the door open, angrily demanding silence in the room. She harshly scolds Melody, blaming her for failing at a simple task. Pointing menacingly, the cruel woman threatens Loretta with severe consequences if she cries. Muttering about the constant noise, the heartless woman storms out of the room. A loud slam echoes, leaving both girls trembling in the heavy silence. Melody softly asks if the terrified child is all right after the outburst. Shaking her head silently, Loretta cowers in deep fear and trauma. Loretta confesses she does not want her home if Melody cannot be there. Filled with sorrow, Melody silently holds the young girl in a tight embrace. Time passes as autumn leaves begin to fall, bringing a new season. Rain begins to fall, casting a somber mood over the quiet landscape. On a gloomy autumn day, a sudden disturbance breaks the quiet house. Quick, hurried footsteps echo down the wooden hallway as a figure approaches. The mother slams the door open, calling out to Melody with excitement. Rushing in, the mother ecstatically announces that she's brought great news. She points triumphantly at Loretta, boasting about their sudden immense luck. Melody grows anxious as her mother greedily calls Loretta a bag of gold. The mother warns Melody to keep the child healthy for the incoming buyer. Annoyed by the silence, the mother demands to know why Melody isn't responding. Stirring the hot soup, Melody quietly asserts that she is not stupid. Her mother's expression instantly warps into absolute rage at the sudden defiance. With a furious scream, the mother lunges forward to punish her daughter. As Melody covers her head, the bowl of hot soup gets knocked over. The hot broth spills violently, splashing across the wooden floor. Melody gasps in absolute horror as she realizes the danger of the spill. The furious mother screams Melody's name as Loretta looks on in shock. Loretta crawls forward to check on Melody, ignoring the dangerously hot puddle. Suddenly, the young girl's foot slips on the slick spilled broth. Loretta falls face first onto the hard wooden floor with a painful crash. Rushing over, Melody is horrified to find Loretta's knee scraped and bleeding. Melody panics at the sight of blood while her mother yells in rage. The cruel mother commands a terrified Melody to run and fetch a doctor. Melody bolts out the door as her mother screams a horrific threat behind her. Outside, a torrential rainstorm limits visibility to near zero. Melody sprints through the mud, gasping for breath in the freezing rain. She battles the relentless downpour, desperate to save Loretta from a permanent scar. Terrifying thoughts of the Duke's brutal wrath consume Melody as she runs. Lost in panic, Melody suddenly trips on a hidden stone. She crashes heavily onto the muddy earth, completely drenched and exhausted. Kneeling in the mud, she bitterly regrets getting so close to Loretta. Staring at her muddy hand, she laments the terrible chain of events. Tears mixed with rain as absolute despair threatens to consume her spirit. Through her tears, a faint glimmer of desperation pushes her forward. Forcing herself up, she resolves to find the doctor no matter what. Staggering through the freezing downpour, Melody steels her resolve to press onward despite her exhaustion. Clinging to her muddy red dress, Melody vows to protect Loretta's future at all costs. Wiping the rain from her eyes, Melody hurries toward her destination to seek help. Through the thick curtain of rain, a dark carriage rattles down the muddy forest path. Sensing something unusual, the carriage driver turns back to check on his passenger. Peering through the carriage window, the noble passenger notes a small figure in the woods. The driver dismisses the sighting as a mere trick of the creepy forest. Resting his hand on the frame, the black-haired Duke stares out into the stormy night. A sudden shift in the storm's intensity marks a crucial turning point in the night. In a warm candlelit room, Miss Merlin carefully records notes in her massive logbook. Sudden, frantic noises from outside cause Miss Merlin to freeze mid-sentence. Holding a single candle high, Miss Merlin cautiously approaches the door to investigate the disturbance. Miss Merlin gasps in shock as a familiar voice calls out from the darkness. Opening the door reveals a shivering, mud-soaked Melody trembling on the threshold. Heavy rain lashes against the cozy cabin as Miss Merlin cries out in utter disbelief. Miss Merlin gently cleanses the dirt and scrapes from Melody's injured leg. Safe by the roaring fire, Melody, wrapped in a blanket, insists that she is all right. Miss Merlin wrings out a damp cloth, expressing her deep frustration over the situation. Miss Merlin mutters angrily about the mother's cruel actions and the threat of law enforcement. Melody desperately begs the red-haired woman to rush to her home immediately. Nervously gesturing, Melody explains how she injured her knee in her haste to get help. Miss Merlin quickly deduces that the emergency involves the child Melody's mother brought home. Miss Merlin grows silent, deeply worried about the dangers of getting involved with slave traders. Melody takes full blame, explaining that the child was injured because of her own mistake. Hearing the truth, Miss Merlin decides to take immediate action. Miss Merlin prepares to ride out alone, ordering Melody to stay warm by the hearth. Melody adamantly refuses, pleading to go along because the terrified child is afraid of the rain. Touched by the girl's selflessness, Miss Merlin hesitates as she considers the request. Shrouded in heavy cloaks, the two ride together on horseback through the dark forest. Miss Merlin urges the horse faster while trying to keep a panicked Melody calm. Reaching the edge of the woods, Miss Merlin abruptly halts the horse to avoid detection. Melody gasps in confusion as she catches sight of an unexpected scene ahead. Miss Merlin points out the mysterious carriages parked directly outside Melody's home. Miss Merlin identifies the wagons as belonging to imperial knights and a high-ranking noble. Melody looks on in utter disbelief as the terrifying truth of her mother's actions sinks in. Clinging tightly to the cloak, Melody realizes the predicted sequence of events is unfolding tonight. The heavy autumn rain marks the fated moment of Loretta's rescue. Melody suggests they return to the house to face what is coming. Miss Merlin quickly silences her, warning that intervening now would put Melody in grave danger. Melody silently realizes she has managed to avoid the worst of her predicted doom. Under a large umbrella, the Duke exits the house with a quiet blonde child. Watching from afar, Melody accepts that her brief time with Loretta has officially ended. Melody finds peace knowing the young heroine is finally returning to her true family. Imagining Loretta's bright and happy future, tears of bittersweet sorrow escape Melody's eyes. A sharp, desperate scream suddenly echoes from the courtyard, breaking the silent night. Guards forcefully arrest the screaming mother, preparing to send her to the central prison. With the crisis resolved, Miss Merlin turns the horse back toward the safety of her cabin. Holding tightly to Miss Merlin, Melody allows her silent tears to fall in the pouring rain. The dark storm clouds slowly drift away as the long, exhausting night finally ends. Warm morning sunlight streams through the window, bringing a brand new day of hope. Just when she thought her life was completely over, a simmering pot of warm soup brings unexpected comfort. The kind red-haired doctor serves a warm meal to the traumatized girl, offering her a rare moment of peace. Melody recalls her absolute terror from the night before, thinking she would collapse from sheer exhaustion. A sudden realization hits Melody, forcing her to spring up from the table in a panic. Looking out at the peaceful forest, Melody can only worry about the fate of the young girl she left behind. Miss Merlin gently comforts Melody and reveals she has been pondering a crucial decision. With a warm smile, the doctor invites Melody to stay at her home where she can be properly cared for. The doctor offers to train Melody in medicine as a replacement for her departed son. Merlin recalls the day her son Isaiah abandoned his medical studies to pursue a dangerous path as a knight. While Merlin promises safety, Melody privately reflects on the secret nature of the doctor's absent son. Seeing Melody's hesitation, Merlin kindly reassures her that she will not force the arrangement on her. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Melody bows deeply to thank the doctor, who humbly claims she is actually quite strict. Melody hesitantly requests some time to think over the life-changing offer. Time passes as a somber silence fills the room during this critical transition. Returning to her abandoned home, Melody is greeted by absolute chaos in a silent, dark hallway. Inspecting the wreckage, Melody realizes her fleeing mother stripped the house of all valuables and clothes. Staring at the ominous stains, Melody deduces her mother was highly intoxicated when the guards arrived. Finding her old drawings, Melody contemplates her mother's grim fate and her own uncertain future. Staring at the drawing of them holding hands, Melody realizes with heavy sorrow that she may never cross paths with Loretta again. Collapsing in grief, Melody bitterly regrets not saying a proper farewell or warning the young girl. Overcome by guilt, Melody weeps over her failure to protect the girl she grew so fond of. Silent tears fall onto the drawing, symbolizing her deepest wish to hear her friend's voice just one last time. A sudden, desperate cry cuts through her grief and commands her to halt. Startled by the familiar shout, Melody whips her head around in absolute disbelief. In a beautiful moment of reunion, their hands reach across the divide to find each other once more. Pure joy and relief bloom in the atmosphere as the bond between the girls is solidified. Loretta throws herself into Melody's arms, initiating a tearful, heartwarming embrace. A moment of brief transition pauses the emotional weight of their unexpected reunion. A serene atmosphere begins to settle over the cottage as the storm clears. Beautiful blossoms fill the scene, mirroring the blooming hope in their hearts. Furious to see her beloved companion in tears, Loretta fiercely vows to punish whoever dared to make her cry. Melody is left completely stunned by the child's fierce and protective outburst. Softening her tone, Loretta gently begs her dear friend to dry her tears and stop weeping. Holding the girl close, Melody realizes her overwhelming guilt melts away whenever Loretta is near. Their tender moment is suddenly interrupted as a powerful figure steps into the room, confirming Loretta's presence. Melody demands to know how the child could have possibly returned to this dangerous place. Overwhelmed by crying, Melody begins to hiccup uncontrollably while Loretta worriedly checks on her. A massive noble hand suddenly appears, offering a decorative container to help soothe Melody's hiccups. The powerful noble offers a refreshing drink, commanding her to drink up and calm her breathing. The powerful noble stares down at Melody, instantly identifying her as the daughter of the criminal slave trader. A wave of sheer terror washes over Melody as she recognizes the formidable man standing before her. Melody recognizes him as the legendary Duke Wayne Baldwin, Loretta's immensely powerful and protective father. Shaking with fear, Melody immediately bows low to offer her deepest apologies to the supreme noble. The Duke regards her with a cool, unreadable gaze, questioning what exactly she is apologizing for. Trembling, Melody confesses to her mother's illegal actions regarding his beloved daughter. Clutching her dress tightly, Melody silently prepares herself to accept whatever severe punishment the powerful noble deems fit. The Duke delivers words of reassurance, easing Melody's fears of facing a terrible fate. He promises to send representatives to handle her mother's official sentencing. Confused by his unexpected leniency, Melody directly asks what severe punishment awaits her own complicity. The Duke clarifies that her mother claims she only took the girl to feed her, clearing Melody of any direct blame. Facing the supreme authority of the Empire, Melody trembles as she awaits her final judgment. The powerful Duke Wayne Baldwin unexpectedly offers her shelter, commanding the girl to follow his lead. This shocking display of royal mercy leaves the young girl completely frozen in utter disbelief. Clinging tightly to her dress, Melody struggles to process this incredibly sudden turn of events. Though deeply grateful, she fears accepting the Duke's reward means she will be separated from Loretta forever. Sweet Loretta innocently asks if they are truly going to share a brand new home together. Melody gently pleads with her and the young blonde girl softly agrees to cooperate. Memories of their heartwarming bond in the woods remind them of the love they share. Determined to stay together, the blonde child looks up with fierce conviction in her eyes. Loretta reaches out, offering a comforting touch to the brown-haired girl's cheek. Clasping hands tightly, the two girls make a silent, unbreakable promise of loyalty. Their shared warmth dissolves all remaining doubt, bringing a sweet moment of pure joy. With a bright smile, Loretta joyfully proclaims their deep mutual affection to everyone present. The brave child immediately turns to the powerful Duke, calling out to command his attention. Loretta confidently declares her formidable father to be a blessed source of endless fortune. Amused and confused, the Duke listens as she explains her mother's unique definition of wealth. Looking at the ruined, scary room, Loretta admits how terrified she was without her dear companion. Staring at her drawing, Melody confesses she also cried from the intense pain of separation. Patting her head, Loretta sweetly reassures Melody that it is perfectly fine for her to cry. The stubborn young child adamantly demands to accompany her beloved friend to the imperial capital. The stoic Duke realizes this is the very first favor his precious daughter has ever requested. It is a staggering request, asking to bring a slave trader's daughter into their imperial mansion. Knowing his own weakness for his beloved daughter, the Duke cannot bring himself to refuse. Remembering the girl's hysterical tears from the previous stormy night, his decision is finalized. Turning to a shocked Melody, the black-haired Duke directly asks for her opinion on the matter. Deep in thought, Melody carefully weighs the massive choice and its consequences lying before her. She contemplates her original plan of becoming a quiet doctor to escape her mother's dark legacy. Looking at the young heroine, Melody recalls her deep knowledge of the novel's original plot. She envisions the grand and beautiful path that awaits adult Loretta in high society. Knowing she holds the power of the novel's script, she finds her true purpose in this world. Melody resolves to use her unique knowledge to secure the absolute best future for her friend. Taking a deep breath, Melody looks up to address the powerful Duke with her choice. With a bright, happy smile, Melody holds Loretta's hand and accepts the proposal to go together. Meanwhile, back at the forest cabin, the red-haired doctor, Miss Merlin, waits anxiously by the porch. Running through the sunlit woods, Melody rushes back to share her incredible news with her mentor. Catching her breath, the excited girl eagerly calls out to the red-haired doctor. As she packs a bag of essentials, Miss Merlin expresses her deep concern about the capital. Miss Merlin warns her that staying with the Duke is far more dangerous than she thinks. Melody reassures her, pointing out that many people in the capital will be on the Duke's side. Realizing her mind is fully made up, Miss Merlin sadly accepts her determined decision. Melody sweetly thanks the kind doctor for letting her stay in Isaiah's cozy room. Miss Merlin playfully sighs, claiming she shouldn't have given the room to a trembling girl anyway. The kind red-haired doctor gently pats Melody's head, wishing her well on her journey. Melody takes a nostalgic look back at the wooden cabin, ready to face her new life. Standing by the doorway, Miss Merlin waves goodbye with a heartfelt prayer for her safety. Peeking out of the carriage window, Loretta waves happily as they begin their journey. Melody waves back cheerfully, stepping forward with hope toward a brilliant future. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Imperial Knights camp where a sudden uproar breaks out. The exhausted knights complain loudly about eating the same simple dried meat for 4 days. One of the knights bitterly mutters that such poor meals are too much for simple soldiers to endure. The sandy-haired companion asks Isaiah if the strange phantom itch is still bothering him. The surprised companion reacts with shock as Isaiah suddenly brandishes a spoon right in front of him. When asked if the traveling food is spoiled, Isaiah curtly denies that anything is wrong. Isaiah wonders who could possibly be talking about him behind his back as his earlobe begins to itch again. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, Melody softly apologizes for drifting off during their journey inside the carriage. The elegant Duke gently reassures her that it is perfectly fine, announcing that they are nearing their destination. Observing the peaceful scene, the Duke notes how much the little blonde girl seems to adore Melody. Looking down warmly, Melody expresses her genuine relief and happiness that the child is comfortable. Hesitating for a brief moment, Melody musters up the courage to address the Duke directly. Melody confesses her concern about Loretta apparently having no recollection of her past trauma. She explains that Loretta possesses no memories of her life prior to this, not even of her own mother. Melody reasons that the terrifying storm has left deep mental scars, causing her to avoid probing further to prevent any panic. The Duke solemnly agrees, noting that the young girl simply needs more time to heal. As the carriage speeds along, the Duke acknowledges Melody by name and promises to repay his debt to her. Melody sympathizes with the Duke, noting how challenging this situation must be for a father. The Duke confesses his lingering doubt about whether the young girl is truly his biological daughter. Melody firmly insists that Loretta must be his daughter, pointing out their striking physical resemblance. The Duke cynically dismisses her words as typical flattery, but Melody quickly prepares to counter his doubts. Melody tenderly strokes the sleeping child's head, soothing her fears. Melody asks the Duke if simply watching the child sleep brings him a sense of happiness. While the Duke silently questions if anyone could find joy in this, Melody playfully giggles. An urgent call rings out as the carriage finally pulls up to the massive estate. The royal guard urgently informs the Duke that the Emperor is demanding his immediate presence. Having been away for an entire month, the Duke is unsurprised by the sovereign's sudden summon. Arriving at the breathtaking mansion, both girls gasp in absolute wonder at its sheer size and beauty. Carriage pulls up to the mansion where the estate staff waits. With a heavy creak, the magnificent doors of the grand estate slide open. Beautiful white roses bloom, shifting the scene to a warm welcome. The main household staff steps forward to warmly welcome the arriving guests. Butler Higgins and housekeeper Madam Higgins introduce themselves, eager to serve the young lady. Higgins politely offers his hand to guide young Loretta safely inside the mansion. Feeling anxious about the unfamiliar place, Loretta tightly holds Melody's hand, asking if they will stay together. Melody reassures the frightened little girl, promising that she will remain right by her side. The gentle butler guides Loretta away, assuring her that everything is prepared and close by. Watching the little girl walk away, Melody can't help but chuckle at how adorable she is. Standing in the shadows, Madam Higgins mutters a harsh insult, revealing her hidden hostility towards Melody. The housekeeper's warm facade vanishes as she aggressively demands Melody get out of the carriage immediately. A warm, steaming bath awaits inside a quiet and luxurious room. Melody timidly asks if she is allowed to bathe, while the housekeeper impatiently questions her hesitation. Fearing Melody will catch a cold, Madam Higgins barks commands, prompting Melody to quickly comply. The moment Melody touches the water, she screams out in absolute shock at how scalding hot it is. Realizing she needs to cool the tub down, Melody tries to lift a heavy bucket of cold water. Startled by Melody's sudden actions, Madam Higgins screams out in confusion. Fearing she has caused trouble, Melody begins to tremble, wondering if she has made a mistake. Scoffing at the girl's small size, the housekeeper takes over and pours the cold water in, telling her it is now safe to bathe. Water splashes dramatically over the wooden rim of the steaming tub. Melody happily plays with wooden toy boats in the warm, bubbly bath. The housekeeper sternly tells Melody to remain in the warm bath until she is instructed to get out. Melody relaxes in the soothing warmth, blissfully unaware of the dark bruises covering her shoulder. Staring in silence, the housekeeper gazes at the bruised young girl. The kind brown-haired maid prepares herbs to wash Melody's back, warning her about a nasty smell. Suggesting Melody call her grandma, the warm maid leaves the humble girl feeling unworthy of such closeness. Sweet Loretta gasps in pure, starry-eyed amazement at her companion. Melody happily twirls in her new nightgown while Loretta declares her the prettiest person in the world. Cuddling in bed, the two girls contentedly discuss the delicious, meat-filled stew they had for dinner. Melody tells her friend to sleep, but a sleepy Loretta begs to stay in her room instead. Assuring her it is fine, Melody cradles the blonde child as she drifts off to sleep. A peaceful, quiet night settles over the grand estate. Morning breaks beautifully over the magnificent Baldwin family mansion. Sweet Loretta sleeps soundly under the warm morning sun. Waking up early, Melody is suddenly startled by a cold, unfamiliar voice calling her ugly. A haughty, blue-eyed boy looks down at Melody, questioning if she is truly a Baldwin. The young boy gazes at his sleeping sister, wondering why she is sleeping in this guest room. Turning away, he grumbles that his sister hasn't even woken up for his rare morning greeting. Peering out from beneath her blanket, a cautious Melody tries to deduce the boy's true identity. Melody is shocked to recognize the proud young boy as Ronnie Baldwin. Ronnie clicks his tongue in deep, haughty irritation. Annoyed by her deep sleep, Ronnie reaches out to pinch his sleeping sister's cheek. He calls her a hideous thing, but Melody's hand suddenly flies out to grab his wrist. Tensions instantly flare as the quiet morning silence is shattered. Melody stands protectively over the bed, holding the young master back. Placing a finger to her lips, Melody commands him to remain quiet and let the child sleep. Ronnie's face flushes bright red with utter embarrassment at her sudden touch. High-stakes tension rises as the young master completely loses his cool. Stuttering in absolute disbelief, the flustered boy struggles to speak. Ronnie shouts in shock as Melody continues to firmly hold her ground. The startled young noble loses his footing and falls flat on his back. Rubbing his sore back, a deeply embarrassed Ronnie groans and demands to know where this strange girl came from.
Ronnie scrambles back onto his feet, trying desperately to reclaim his shattered dignity.
Melody looks down at him with gentle concern, asking if he is all right. Ronnie coldly rejects her worry, accusing her of being a liar who deceived her way into the estate. Trembling with absolute rage, the proud young noble furiously orders her to get out of his house. He storms out of the room, declaring he will not tolerate strangers making his father suffer. Standing in the quiet room as the door slams, Melody realizes he deeply dislikes her. Remembering her novel knowledge, Melody notes that their sibling rivalry has started much sooner than expected. Waking up from the commotion, sweet Loretta rubs her sleepy eyes and calls out to her friend. Melody greets the young child with a warm smile, asking if she slept all. Loretta innocently protests her formal title, insisting she is just Loretta as they chat near the garden. A few days later, Duke Wayne Baldwin walks through the sunny garden reviewing a letter with his butler. The butler calls out to the Duke just as a sweet voice suddenly interrupts them. Running up with her arms outstretched, Loretta happily declares her dream to grow as big as her father. The stoic Duke looks down at his beloved daughter with a softened expression. He asks if she enjoyed her breakfast, and she answers with an enthusiastic nod. Beaming with pride, Loretta vows she will become just as grand as him in the future. Rare, gentle warmth fills the Duke's eyes as he softly thanks his daughter. The frantic maids run up in a panic, crying that they didn't finish brushing the girl's hair. The maid apologizes for the chaos, but the protective Duke simply instructs her to fetch a warm coat. The maid rushes after the energetic girl while the Duke watches with quiet care. The handsome black-haired Duke looks back with a highly thoughtful gaze. Out of deep concern for his daughter's safety, the doting Duke orders his butler to childproof the entire mansion. High-stakes tension grips the estate as the black-haired Duke demands to know if the temple has finally sent a response. Pondering his next move, the powerful Duke determines that a personal request to the Grand Priest is his only option. As he strides back to his office, the Duke authorizes a larger donation to secure the priest's favor. The butler stops him, gently proposing a visit to young Loretta while Melody reads her a fairy tale. Remaining cold and detached, the Duke flatly refuses, ordering his butler to attend in his stead. The butler walks downstairs with a sigh, unaware of the sinister gossip brewing among the cleaning staff. In the corridor, the short-haired maid Alta tells Patty that she will be staying at the mansion. Alta leans in close, whispering toxic rumors about the mysterious new children occupying the estate. Mocking the situation, Alta mimics the malicious gossip of other servants who ridicule their unknown origins. Patty looks deeply worried, admitting that the Duke's cold demeanor makes everyone question if Loretta is his child. Determined to exploit the situation, Alta refuses to sit quietly while their reputation is at stake. A devious, chilling look washes over Alta's face as she hatches a manipulative plan. Overwhelmed by greed, she vows to take action rather than remain a bystander to the rumors. A lavish dessert tower overflowing with cupcakes, pastries, and fruits is prepared to tempt the children. The maids present the sweet feast to Loretta, who gazes at the treats with pure excitement. Feeding Loretta a green grape, Alta watches her with a cold, incredibly calculating gaze. Leaning close, Alta slyly asks the young girl if she is curious about her true identity. Alta whispers a devastating question, planting doubt about whether Loretta is truly the Duke's daughter. Terrified by her partner's bold insolence, Patty quickly steps forward to silence the scheming maid. Realizing she may have pushed too far, Alta quickly backs down with a nervous sweat. Shaking her head innocently, Chibi Loretta denies hearing any such rumors from the temple priests. Pointing to herself with a proud grin, Loretta happily credits Melody as her source of information. Looking over the balcony, the maids explain that she must be officially recognized by the temple to secure her safety. Urging the child to take action, Alta insists that Loretta must win public favor through good deeds. Alta selfishly dreams of moving to the prestigious second floor once Loretta's status is secured. Loretta suddenly extends a grape to her, catching the greedy maid completely off guard. Alta immediately twists the moment, asking Loretta if she is prepared to let Melody fall into grave danger. Leaning in with a venomous whisper, Alta lies that Melody will be thrown into a dungeon with terrifying men. Horrified by the sudden threat to her dearest friend, young Loretta freezes in absolute terror. A wave of dark, suffocating panic visualizes as the cruel lies pierce the child's heart. Back in the quiet bedroom, Melody gently brushes Loretta's hair, unaware of the child's inner turmoil. Sensing her friend's extreme distress, Melody pauses and looks down in deep concern. To calm her down, Melody instructs Loretta to take a deep, slow breath. Loretta follows her guidance, letting out a long, heavy sigh to ease her racing mind. Melody smiles warmly, while Loretta silently wonders if the Duke will truly accept her. The moon shines brightly over the silent estate, casting deep shadows across the room. Overwhelmed by fear, Loretta bursts into tears and throws her arms around Melody. Sobbing hysterically, she cries out that she must secure the Duke's favor to protect Melody from danger. Melody holds the trembling girl close, her eyes filled with gentle, loving determination. Looking up with tear-filled eyes, Loretta begs her friend to teach her how to win the Duke's heart. The lingering question of whether the stoic Duke is truly kind hangs heavily in the air. Meanwhile, the butler patrols the dark corridors, his lantern illuminating the empty halls. Suddenly, he spots a silhouette in the shadows and stops in surprise. Finding the Duke standing quietly near the rooms, the butler asks what has brought him out so late. Outside the room, the Duke stands in absolute silence, listening intently to the girls' conversation. Melody reassures Loretta, pointing out that the Duke's careful actions to childproof the mansion prove his inner kindness. Reassured by her friend's words, Loretta beams with joy as they share a warm, sisterly embrace. Listening from the hallway, a rare look of deep, quiet emotion softens the Duke's stoic face. Next morning, both girls gasp in sheer, starry-eyed astonishment at a sudden arrival. Displayed beautifully on the table are elegant matching lace hats, a silent, precious gift from the doting Duke. Melody stares at her beautiful gift box, feeling conflicted about accepting such a lavish present. An ecstatic Loretta proudly declares she will wear her beautiful new hat to the garden.
Loretta dashes excitedly out of the room, leaving Melody and the staff amused by her infinite energy.
Melody politely admires her gift, earning silent praise from the butler for her mature demeanor. Melody holds her beautiful new hat, expressing her sincere gratitude to the Duke for his unexpected kindness. The butler smiles warmly, noting how exceptionally well-behaved Melody is. The butler and the head housemaid discuss the Duke's busy schedule, noting his late return. The butler promises to convey Melody's gratitude to the Duke. The butler kindly encourages Melody to wear the gift, assuring her the Duke would be delighted. Melody tries on the stunning lace hat, looking absolutely adorable as blue flowers frame her sweet face. The butler is utterly charmed by Melody's cute appearance, while the stern head housemaid makes a funny comparison, remarking that she looks like a precious baby sheep. Outside, maids Patty and Alta carry a box and discuss the mysterious luxury of the gifts. Alta boasts about her manipulative plans to exploit the young lady's status for her own benefit. Suddenly, sweet Loretta runs past them with boundless joy, startling the two servants. The scheming Alta quickly changes her face, offering Loretta water with a fake, sweet smile. A breathtaking portrait reveals the core trio of this captivating tale, surrounded by blooming roses. As Loretta sips her water, Alta slyly asks if the Duke has suddenly become nicer to her. Loretta tilts her head in pure innocence, wondering if her father has always been this kind. Alta continues to manipulate the young child, claiming the gift was only earned through her own toxic advice. Alta condescendingly mocks the idea of a stranger receiving such a high-class gift for no reason. Loretta insists she is not a stranger, but Alta quickly cuts her down with the temple's lack of approval. Leaning in close, Alta reminds Loretta to behave perfectly so she can gain official recognition at the temple. While Patty tries to stop Alta from crossing the line, the arrogant maid claims full credit for Loretta's success. Loretta blocks out the maid's toxic words, focusing her eyes on a figure in the distance. The young lady gasps in delight as she spots a very important person. Without warning, Loretta dashes away to greet her favorite housemaid. The two maids turn around in absolute shock as the young child runs off. A sharp, dramatic sound effect echoes, signaling a sudden shift in the mansion's atmosphere. Loretta happily greets the stern head housemaid, Madam Higgins, who stands with an incredibly imposing aura. Tensions skyrocket as the formidable Madam Higgins glares down at the terrified servants behind her. The innocent child eagerly asks Madam Higgins if she knows why she received the beautiful hat. A wall of fiery, furious wrath erupts behind Madam Higgins as she questions who truly deserves credit. Loretta innocently explains that Alta claimed the gift was entirely due to her own clever guidance. Alta begins to sweat profusely as the cold gaze of Madam Higgins locks onto her. Alta desperately tries to laugh it off, lying that the young lady is simply confused. Loretta immediately corrects her, insisting her words are completely clear. Loretta innocently reveals Alta's terrifying lies about Melody potentially going to prison. Terrified, Alta frantically denies ever uttering such malicious lies. Loretta exposes the truth, detailing Alta's threats about Melody's fate and the second-floor scheme. Furious Madam Higgins steps forward to punish the insubordinate maid, silencing her excuses. With a swift, powerful strike, the head housemaid rips the prestigious emblem from Alta's uniform. Alta stands in absolute horror, staring down at her torn apron in utter despair. Trembling with immense fear, the ruined maid struggles to find her voice. Desperate to save her career, Alta falls flat on her knees, begging for forgiveness. Madam Higgins coldly looks down at the crying maid, holding the stripped emblem with absolute authority. Cornered and ruined, Alta's fear turns into venomous rage as she glares at the innocent child. Overwhelmed by bitterness, the hysterical maid screams at Loretta for ruining her hard work. Completely losing her sanity, Alta raises her hand to strike the helpless young lady. Before the blow can land, a protective figure suddenly rushes forward to shield the child. Melody stands defiantly, fiercely blocking the maid's hand and warning her to never touch the young lady again. The peaceful morning sky shatters as dark conspiracies finally crumble under the weight of swift justice. Standing before a magnificent cake, the butler and Madam Higgins prepare to deliver long-awaited justice. Young Loretta and Melody stare at the massive dessert in complete awe and delight. Madam Higgins reassures the children that the toxic maid has been swiftly fired for her actions. As Higgins sincerely apologizes for the hiring oversight, an ecstatic Loretta affectionately calls her grandma. Loretta eagerly asks for a slice of carrot cake, and Higgins happily grants her request. With a bright smile, the sweet children warmly invite the staff to eat cake with them. The young girls realize the massive dessert is far too big for just them to finish. Charmed by their kindness, the butler and Higgins share a heartwarming, subtle smile. The loyal mansion staff happily divide the giant cake to share a joyful moment together. Loretta generously offers a large slice of cake to a pleasantly surprised maid. From a distance, a hand holds a slice of cake while the stoic Duke walks away. The Duke patrols the grounds, hearing the distant, joyful laughter echoing from the gazebo. The Duke observes the changing atmosphere of the mansion, noting how ordinary joy has entered his cold walls. Inside his quiet study, the Duke's steady hand pen strokes important orders. Sitting at his grand desk, the Duke sternly inquires about the fate of the dismissed maid. Standing before him, the butler details plans to blackball her from finding employment elsewhere. To the butler's surprise, the Duke coldly rejects this passive punishment. The black-haired Duke orders her record sent to a local mansion to command swift official consequences. Shifting focus, the Duke curiously asks about the welfare of the two young girls. The butler begins to report that the children have successfully finished their outdoor walk. He continues to explain that they had a lovely tea time following their afternoon stroll. The Duke reveals he heard their vibrant laughter echoing all the way to his study. The Duke pauses in deep thought, leaving the butler curious about his silent reaction. Dismissing his own thoughts, the Duke quietens the conversation as a sudden knock sounds at the door. The door swings open to reveal Melody holding her beautiful new lace hat in polite surprise. The butler formally announces Melody's arrival to the quiet study. Standing politely, the brown-haired girl cradles the beautiful lace hat in her hands. Melody explains that since Loretta fell asleep, she came in her stead to show her respect. She admits that expressing her gratitude directly was the right thing to do today. Melody bashfully confesses she wanted to write a thank you letter but did not know how. Butler comments on their active tea time, noting the Duke's busy schedule. Melody happily praises Loretta's wonderful hospitality during their outdoor tea gathering. The Duke delivers a crushing blow, coldly stating that he does not enjoy tea time. Noting her pale face, the Duke commands the intimidated girl to return to her room. He turns to the staff, asserting that children should not be around his busy office. The Duke looks on silently as the polite young girl prepares to leave. Before exiting, Melody musters her courage to thank him once more and praise the pretty hat. A warm, genuine smile lights up Melody's face as she promises to cherish the beautiful gift. Stunned by her sweet demeanor, a rare, soft smile graces the Duke's handsome face as he bids her goodnight. The next afternoon, Melody stands by the window, noticing the crisp autumn wind getting cooler. She sighs in frustration as the protective mansion staff prevent her from doing any chores. The determined young girl looks around, searching for a way to make herself useful. In the busy kitchen, Madam Higgins questions why Melody is suddenly snooping around. Melody smiles, expressing her desire to help peel peanuts to earn her keep. Higgins playfully remarks on her small hands as they sit together at the table. The stern woman tests the young girl's cooking instincts with freshly roasted peanuts. Melody politely asks if she may eat one of the peanuts they peeled. Melody happily pops a delicious roasted peanut right into her mouth. Chewing happily, Melody praises the savory snack while Higgins jokingly bans her from the kitchen for the week. Crucial conspiracies brew in the shadows of the mansion as the brown-haired maid grumbles that even the nagging elders leading the duchy are being served food today. As she works, Melody quietly contemplates how those powerful elders had planned their sudden visit to the Duke's estate before young Loretta went to the temple. Stepping into the room, the head housemaid tells Melody she has peeled enough peanuts, gently instructing the young girl to return to her bedroom. The stern maid warns that a child wandering the dark corridors alone will cause a major scene, to which Melody politely agrees before preparing to leave. Walking down the dimly lit hallway with her candle and a small bag of peanuts, Melody wonders if there is a hidden reason behind the elders' arrival. Clutching her modest treats, Melody reassures herself that nothing in the world can ever change the undeniable truth of Loretta being the Duke's real daughter. As she walks, a sudden, subtle sound behind her shatters the absolute silence of the dark corridor. Melody gasps in absolute shock as her candle flame is suddenly extinguished, plunging the hallway into pitch darkness. Trembling with immense fear, the young girl tearfully recalls the maid's warning and desperately wishes she had been told what was truly lurking in the dark. Out of the terrifying shadows, a mysterious hand reaches forward to grab her. A chilling whisper echoes in her ear as a pale hand abruptly grabs her brown hair from behind, startling her. Turning around in a panic, Melody is relieved to recognize the startled intruder as none other than young Master Ronnie. Sitting on the blue sofa with his arms crossed, the black-haired young master grumbles that he went out of his way to visit, yet she has no idea how to properly serve him tea. When the polite girl offers him a late-night peanut to appease him, Ronnie gets incredibly defensive, snapping and asking if she treats him like a mere child. Shrugging it off, Melody calmly decides to eat the delicious roasted peanuts by herself while the young boy sits opposite her with a grumpy pout. Narrowing his blue eyes, the serious young master demands to know exactly why she has wandered into this part of the mansion. Standing up on the blue couch, Ronnie mysteriously asks if she has heard the urgent news regarding the estate's new guests. Chewing happily, Melody innocently asks if he is referring to the rumors about the elders staying at the Duke's mansion. Ronnie stammers in utter confusion while the chibi girl tilts her head, wondering if he really came all this way just to tell her that. Whispering under his breath, the serious young boy commands her to step closer to him. Leaning forward from the edge of the blue couch, Ronnie urgently tells her to put her ears close to him. Leaning in, the young master quietly warns the brown-haired girl that she must stay on high alert against the newly arrived elders. He begins to explain that these powerful gray-haired men harbor deeply bitter intentions toward them. Ronnie warns her that these stern leaders have absolutely no affection for the children living in this house. He delivers a shocking revelation, warning Melody that the elders are actively plotting to banish her from the estate. In the original story, young Master Ronnie was known as the most aggressive and hostile sibling of them all. Spotting him shouting protectively at a blonde girl in her memories, Melody is stunned to realize that Ronnie is deeply worried about Loretta's ultimate safety. With a bright, warm smile, Melody happily promises to deliver his protective warning straight to the young lady, catching the embarrassed boy off guard. Melody gently points out that even Loretta is already well aware of how much her dear brother truly worries about her. Blushing furiously with a bright red face, the flustered young master screams in absolute denial at her sweet words. Realizing the truth, Melody gasps in surprise as she realizes his warning was actually meant to protect her instead of Loretta. Trying to spare his fragile pride, Melody quickly apologizes, telling him she is glad he worries for Loretta and asking him to stop teasing her. Angered by her reaction, the blushing boy grits his teeth and yells that she is being incredibly arrogant. Ronnie points and shouts furiously, warning her that the elders are completely determined to get rid of someone like her as soon as possible. Frustrated and misunderstood, the young master turns his back on her once more. He remarks that a hurt expression will not change the reality of the elders' deep hatred, leaving Melody to wonder why they despise a simple child like her. When Melody sadly suggests that important people never notice her, Ronnie snaps back, asking who exactly claimed that he does not care about her welfare. Storming away in a fit of frustration, the flustered boy yells that she is incredibly annoying. The heavy double doors slam shut with a loud crash as the angry young master yells that she is awful, leaving the room in complete silence. Alone once more, the playful young girl sticks her tongue out at the closed doors in a moment of childish rebellion. In another part of the mansion, a steady hand with a gold ring sets a warm cup of red tea onto the table. Sitting at the table, the stern gray-haired head elder proclaims that their ultimate duty is to uphold the sacred tradition and honor of the Baldwin family. The three elders argue that the Duke's public search for his daughter, influenced by trivial gossip, severely damages the long-standing prestige of their house. Looking down with disapproval, the elder demands that the master of the house take swift action to protect the dignity of the family. Sitting silently with his fingers interlaced, the cold, black-haired Duke listens to their endless complaints with a sharp, analytical gaze. Next morning, a tiny hand happily pokes a perfectly cooked egg yolk at the breakfast table. While sweet Loretta eagerly eats her meal, a tired Melody lets out a large yawn after her eventful night. Puzzled by the sudden change in atmosphere, the drowsy girl notices the household staff staring at them with intense excitement. Turning around, Melody politely asks the two blushing maids if they have something exciting to share with them. Squealing with absolute delight, the ecstatic maids announce that a wonderful delivery has just arrived for the young ladies. An unexpected delivery arrives at the mansion, throwing the young girls into complete shock as they try to process the surprise. One of the excited maids steps forward and eagerly presents the beautifully wrapped gift box to the girls. Loretta instantly jumps into action, eagerly tossing the ribbon aside to tear open the mysterious package. The maids squeal in absolute delight over the gorgeous high-class green hair ribbons resting inside the box. While Loretta cheers happily, Melody holds her new accessory while the maid remarks on the Duke's surprisingly elegant taste. Meanwhile, inside the tense meeting room, the stern head elder sips his tea while delivering a cold, dark warning. The head elder begrudgingly acknowledges that they might accept young Loretta as the Duke's true daughter despite her past. The secondary elder gestures aggressively, demanding swift action regarding the second child living under their roof. The conspiratorial elders point out that Melody's presence in the house is an entirely different, unacceptable matter. The elder openly questions the Duke's baffling decision to bring a lowly criminal's companion into their prestigious home. Listening silently, the cold Duke calmly proposes a solution, stating he has already found a proper role for her. The outraged elder violently slams his hand on the table, fiercely rejecting the idea of using the child as a servant. While the elders warn of public humiliation, the Duke firmly counters that Melody is his invited guest, not a servant. The head elder chuckles mockingly, completely amused by the absurd notion of treating a commoner as a noble guest. His smile quickly vanishes as he sternly declares that they will never tolerate such a stain on their lineage. He sneers with deep disgust, asserting that the tainted blood of a lowly criminal does not belong in their presence. The elder insists that someone of her standing must never be allowed to defile the sacred name of the Baldwin family. He demands absolute purity, asserting that not even a single speck of her filth should touch their pristine halls. Sinking into deep thought, the current Duke silently contemplates how the former Duke would have handled this insolent behavior. He recalls a harsh lesson from his past about how weakness and sentimentality can easily destroy a noble household's legacy. The Duke's dark gaze hardens with cold determination as he processes the elder's blatant disrespect and threats. The butler sweat drops in sheer panic, nervously agreeing that the master will surely be displeased by this intense conflict. The Duke firmly stands his ground, noting that too many outsiders are eager to compromise their family's security and rights. The heavy doors creak open as the head butler suddenly interrupts the tense meeting to deliver an urgent message. Upon hearing a sudden report from the temple, the Duke immediately excuses himself, leaving the meeting without a second thought. The head elder is left completely speechless and offended as the Duke abruptly walks out on them. Later that night, young Loretta anxiously asks Melody if she noticed the menacing elder staring and whispering at dinner. Melody confirms she noticed him, but reassures Loretta by pointing out the scary elder left his meal early. Melody suddenly hatches a plan, instructing a confused Loretta to quickly grab a sleeping pillow. Putting her finger to her lips, Melody quietly leads the way for their secret nighttime excursion through the dark corridors. Sneaking down the grand staircase, Melody promises they are heading to the absolute safest sanctuary in the entire mansion. The massive Baldwin estate stands peaceful under the night sky, completely unaware of the girl's secret escape. Gazing out a study window, the Duke contemplates his heightened security measures to protect the children from the elders. His train of thought is suddenly broken by a soft, polite knock echoing through his silent study. Assuming it is the bothersome elders seeking him out again, the Duke grumpily heads toward the heavy doors. Ready to confront his unwanted visitors, he swings the door open with a cold, defensive remark. The Duke freezes in absolute shock as his eyes widen at the completely unexpected sight standing before him. Instead of the hostile elders, he finds Melody nervously standing there with Loretta clutching her sleeping pillow. Looking up with pleading eyes, Melody politely asks the stunned Duke for his urgent help. The usually unflappable Duke is left utterly bewildered and sweat-dropping at their sudden nighttime visit. Melody stammers slightly, gathering her courage to repeat her desperate request for his protection. When the Duke asks what they need, Melody fiercely declares that her only goal is to keep Loretta safe tonight. The Duke is taken aback, questioning why she feels unsafe since the elders would never openly threaten them. Melody reveals that Master Ronnie himself had specifically warned her to stay on high alert around their new guests. Recognizing her genuine concern, the Duke welcomes them inside to sit by his warm, cozy fireplace. Melody explains that she knew the Duke was the single most trustworthy person in the estate, prompting him to ask why. With unwavering conviction, the young girl happily reminds him that he is indeed Loretta's true father. Melody proudly points out that his paternal instinct makes him the ultimate hero capable of protecting anyone. She fondly recalls how he boldly saved Loretta from the kidnapping elder even before having any proof of their biological connection. Melody lets out a dramatic, exhausted sigh, leaving the Duke completely speechless and highly amused by her antics. Stunned green eyes widen as she finally realizes the ultimate truth. The Duke solemn-facedly stakes his prestigious name to guarantee their ultimate safety. Overwhelmed with profound relief, Melody softly thanks him for his protection. Melody politely bows to bid him goodnight, leaving the Duke momentarily speechless. Sleepily rubbing her eyes, young Loretta wonders where Melody is heading. Melody explains she will sleep on the floor so Loretta can stay close to the Duke. Loretta questions why they cannot share the large bed, though Melody reassures her. Silent and solemn, the Duke closely observes their deep bond with heavy contemplation. Ominous doubts arise regarding Melody's place in the prestigious household. The furious elders decree that criminal blood will never defile their sacred home. The head elder demands absolute exclusion, while the Duke vehemently rejects their demands. Loretta tearfully clings to Melody, declaring she cannot sleep without her sister. Loretta firmly insists to her father that Melody belongs in the bed too. Loretta beams brightly, flashing a thumbs up to gain the Duke's approval. Melody stammers in sheer embarrassment, caught off guard by the bold demand. To Melody's absolute shock, the Duke calmly mimics the playful thumbs-up gesture. Melody is warmly wrapped in a cozy blanket, feeling perfectly safe. Loretta giggles at the soft blanket, while a flustered Melody tries to decline. The Duke recalls how Mrs. Higgins addressed Melody, noting her gentle influence. Loretta eagerly pats the space beside them, inviting her father to join. He explains that Duke sleeps alone, leaving the children completely baffled. Loretta sadly declares she will always sleep beside Melody no matter what. Watching them closely, the Duke's icy demeanor slowly melts with warmth. The Duke silently notes Loretta's unwavering belief that she is his daughter. He questions whether the child is naive or if his own insight is lacking. He muses that her bright presence might finally heal his fractured family. Melody softly thanks the Duke for granting her stubborn favor tonight. She beams while thanking him for the green ribbon matching family colors. Melody explains how she noticed the green theme throughout his private study. The Duke commends her sharp observation, causing her to blush shyly. Melody expresses her deepest gratitude for his unexpected kindness toward her. Turning away, the aloof Duke tells her she can keep the simple gift. Melody happily reiterates how much the thoughtful gesture truly meant to her. She softly apologizes if her sudden presence caused him any inconvenience. Gently tucking her in, the Duke instructs her to finally rest. As he watches them sleep, a soft voice calls out to him. Under the glowing starlight, the girls finally drift into a peaceful slumber. A gentle blessing whispers through the room, wishing them sweet dreams. His hand gently rests on a portrait, whispering a beloved name. Reaching to turn off the lamp, his inner thoughts begin to unravel. He admits he has fought hard to never be swayed by emotion. Looking at them, he realizes he can no longer suppress his feelings. He resolves to never cast them aside, regardless of tomorrow's temple verdict. He smiles at the portrait, knowing she would approve of his choice. Morning dawns as a grand carriage prepares for a momentous journey. Servants bow respectfully as the carriage departs under the elders' glares. The maids gleefully whisper about how exhausted the grumpy elders look. Melody smirks triumphantly, knowing she successfully outmaneuvered the conspiratorial elders. Loretta excitedly sprints back, ignoring the worried warnings of her maid. Melody beams with joy, knowing their family's blood tie is officially sealed. Just when peace finally settles, a terrifying conspiracy begins to unfold in the shadows. Melody rests her chin on her hands, smiling warmly as she gazes down at an open book on her desk. Mysterious Jeremiah, growing up far away in the magic tower, will soon return to meet his newly discovered youngest sister. Melody clenches her fists with burning determination, resolved to shield Loretta from any danger that comes their way. Her resolve is suddenly interrupted as a sharp, sudden knock echoes from the heavy, study doors. Swinging the door open, Melody eagerly expects the butler with the highly anticipated temple test results. Instead of the friendly butler, the hostile, white-haired elder looms over her with a venomous sneer. The battle for the true lineage of the Baldwin family is about to reach its absolute boiling point. The elder looks down with deep contempt, addressing her with cold arrogance. Melody quickly recognizes him as the suspicious guest from last night's tense dinner. He coldly declares that Loretta's identity as the Duke's true daughter is now officially confirmed. Overjoyed by the news, Melody celebrates that their hard-fought victory is finally sealed. But the malicious elder's silence hints at a far more sinister plan brewing in his mind. He smugly informs Melody that she is finally getting paid and must leave the estate immediately. Melody stands frozen in utter shock as the elder questions her true motives for bringing the child here. The elder mockingly suggests that Melody only brought Loretta back to extort money from the noble family. He turns his back on her, pretending he is merely carrying out the family's wishes. While walking away, he arrogantly claims to know the Duke's mind better than anyone else. Standing next to packed luggage, he reminds her of her place as a criminal's companion. He venomously doubts that the prestigious Duke would ever allow a commoner to stay near his precious daughter. Heartbroken and cornered, Melody desperately tries to think of any way she can still be useful to the Duke. Cruelly stripping away her dignity, the elder snatches the precious green ribbon right out of her hair. Melody cries out in desperation, demanding that he return the Duke's thoughtful gift. Clenching her fist, she fiercely defends the ribbon as a direct sign of the Duke's kindness. The elder sneers, revealing that the Duke has already completed a thorough investigation into her mother's dark past. Melody realizes with horror that the meticulous Duke would indeed uncover her true background. He offers her a heavy bag of coins, ordering her to take her pay and leave quietly. Tearfully shaking her head, Melody fiercely rejects the dirty payoff. The elder's patience completely vanishes as his expression darkens with dangerous frustration. He violently grabs her wrist, refusing to tolerate her defiance any longer. Dragging her out into the pouring rain, he commands her to leave with her mother.
Under the stormy skies, he fiercely demands to know why she refuses to return to her mother.
Cold rain triggers a terrifying memory of the day she was released from a dark prison. She recalls her abusive mother greedily ordering her to beg for money at the Duke's mansion. An ominous, dark threat looms over her as she remembers her mother's terrifying cruelty. The suffocating memory of her mother's violent hands sends a wave of pure terror through her. Desperate to escape her mother's wrath, the young girl is forced to run toward the central prison. Back in the present, the elder barks orders at the carriage driver to prepare for immediate departure. Melody struggles with all her might, desperately screaming that she will not go with him. She tearfully questions how someone could be so incredibly heartless and cruel to a child. Her mother's venomous voice echoes in her mind, accusing her of being a selfish traitor.
The terrifying image of her enraged mother lunging forward completely paralyzes her with fear.
Trembling violently in the freezing rain, Melody begs for the torment to finally stop. Sobbing hysterically, she desperately pleads for forgiveness from her past trauma. The heartless elder ignores her tears, aggressively pulling her toward the waiting carriage. Suddenly, a fierce voice cuts through the storm, ordering the elder to release the child immediately. Dropping her bag into a muddy puddle, Mrs. Higgins charges forward to defend the Duke's guest. She violently slaps the elder's hand away, fiercely reprimanding him for abusing a helpless child. Mrs. Higgins kneels in the rain, frantically checking to see if Melody is hurt. Gently cupping her wet face, she reassures Melody that the elder's cruel words are nothing but senile nonsense. Holding her close, she promises to protect her, leaving us to wonder how the Duke will react to this outrageous betrayal. In the freezing rain, a shocking truth comes to light as a heartless elder reveals the dark payout. The elder smugly confirms the bribe was enough, provoking her furious mockery. Mrs. Higgins points an accusatory finger, mockingly calling out his fake pride in front of the Duke. Demoting his grand illusions, Mrs. Higgins sternly reminds them they are nothing but powerless retirees. In a fit of rage, the ruthless elder violently shoves Mrs. Higgins to the wet ground. Watching from afar, Melody gasps in absolute horror as the violence unfolds. Screaming for her nanny, Melody desperately sprints forward to aid her fallen protector. Suddenly, a sinister henchman ambushes Melody from behind, stifling her desperate cries. The trembling elder commands his driver to lock the child away and depart instantly. Deep within the estate grounds, a worried maid calls out to her fleeing companion. Panic-stricken, Patty confesses she heard Melody's distant, terrifying screams echo through the storm. Rounding the corner, Patty freezes in horror at the sight of her injured supervisor. Patty rushes to the weeping woman's side, begging to know if she is unharmed. Determined to seek justice, Mrs. Higgins vows to inform the Duke of Melody's abduction. The scene darkens as ominous footsteps lead Melody down into a subterranean prison. A grim guard welcomes the elder as they descend deeper into the cold dungeon. Paralyzed with fear, Melody can only tremble as a menacing shadow looms over her. A mocking whisper echoes through the dark, forcing her to confront her long-lost mother. Behind heavy iron bars sits the silent, menacing silhouette of a captive woman. The sinister captive turns, her glowing gaze locking onto the terrified young girl. Shackle chains rattle as the haggard, dark-haired prisoner is fully brought to light. Trapped in a living nightmare, Melody stares helplessly as the cruel trap closes in. The elder coldly dictates her final fate, ordering her to leave the capital forever. He offers a final venomous warning to never show her face near the estate again. Hearing mention of money, the greed in the mother's chained hands instantly reawakens. With sudden violent desperation, she lunges forward toward the prison gate. Gripping the rusted bars, her maddened face screams for details of the bribe. Melody flinches back, completely traumatized by her mother's terrifying and greedy outburst. The crazed woman demands to know if Melody brought the payout to free her. Shifting back to hours ago, the high priest prepares to announce the official lineage results. The high priest coughs in awkward silence, delivering a completely obvious expected verdict. Unfazed by the declaration, the stoic duke maintains his calm, authoritative demeanor. Clinging to hope, young Loretta immediately begs to be reunited with her beloved sister. A sudden wave of shock hits the palace as Melody's sudden disappearance is revealed. A deceptive steward lies to the duke, claiming Melody eagerly ran away with the payout. The duke's eyes narrow in deep suspicion as he questions her alleged greed. The steward doubles down on his lie, painting Melody as a scheming extortionist. Refusing to swallow the bait, the duke turns to investigate the truth himself. He resolves to track her down in the capital and hear the truth directly. Panicking, the guilty conspirators desperately try to block the duke from leaving. The steward attempts to guilt-trip the duke, pleading for the mother's custody. The nervous steward slips up, revealing Melody's horrific destination at the central prison. Ignoring their desperate, illegal excuses, the duke prepares to take immediate action. The scheming steward continues to argue that a child belongs with her parents. Recalling Melody's fragile innocence, the duke's heart hardens against their twisted logic. The cold-hearted elders dismiss Loretta's profound bond, claiming children easily forget their friends. The steward's smug prediction is shattered by a sudden, thunderous cry of defiance. Standing tall, young Loretta fiercely declares her eternal loyalty to her sister. The conspirators turn pale as the duke enters, escorted by the limping nanny. Bowing deeply, the brave nanny prepares the duke to unleash his righteous wrath. Standing with absolute determination, young Loretta prepares to face the wicked conspirators who threatened her family. In the dark dungeon cells, the elder reveals the harsh reality of Melody's desperate plan to free her mother. The arrogant elder mockingly warns the prisoner behind bars that she cannot escape her inevitable punishment. He coldly complains that Melody's low status has brought shame upon the prestigious family's honor. Placing a rough hand on the trembling girl's shoulder, he sneers at her foolish arrogance. Melody looks up in absolute shock, completely heartbroken by his cruel rejection. The greedy mother breaks into a sinister smile, demanding to know where the massive payout is hidden. Terrified, Melody stammeringly confesses that she no longer has the grand fortune. The bitter memory of how she lost the gold flashes before her eyes. During the chaotic confrontation in the pouring rain, the heavy pouch of coins was dropped onto the wet ground. The prisoner erupts in absolute fury, violently grasping the rusted bars at the devastating news. Sweating nervously, the elder orders his companion to keep the truth hidden forever. The smug guard mockingly scoffs at the elder's foolish mistake of trusting a child with gold. Desperate, the greedy mother demands Melody find another way to secure her freedom. A menacing, bloodshot eye glares through the darkness, signaling an impending storm of pure madness. Trapped in a corner, Melody can only weep as she begs her mother for forgiveness. The heartless elder turns his back, ordering the guard to lock her away with the other criminals. Melody stares in utter despair, realizing she is truly helpless against their sinister plot. Suddenly, a pair of dirty, chained hands violently grab the helpless girl through the bars. Screaming like a wild animal, the crazed mother drags her daughter closer, demanding her money. She unleashes a toxic tirade, fiercely blaming the young girl for ruining her life. The red haze of her mother's terrifying rage completely paralyzes Melody with raw horror. The force of the struggle violently throws Melody to the cold stone floor in chains. The impatient guard barks at her to stand up, while the heartless elder watches without pity. Disgusted by her weakness, the cruel guard prepares to strike the helpless child down. But a sudden menacing shadow steps out of the dark, freezing the guard in his tracks. Out of the dungeon's shadows steps the Duke, radiating an aura of terrifying righteous fury. Drawing his glistening blade, the Duke threatens to sever the guard's foot if he dares to touch her. Paralyzed by the sheer force of his presence, the terrified guard falls backward, his keys clattering to the floor. Trembling on the ground, the pathetic guard instantly begs the powerful noble for mercy. The cowardly elder spins around, his face turning pale as he realizes his sins have caught up to him. Mrs. Higgins charges in, fiercely reprimanding the elder for abusing a completely innocent child. Embracing the sobbing girl, the brave nanny shields her from the terrifying gazes of the villains. Desperate to save himself, the cornered elder frantically claims that the child is nothing but a dirty criminal. The Duke calmly instructs Mrs. Higgins to take Melody away from this vile dungeon. But his orders suddenly shift, telling the nanny to leave Melody with him as he takes control. Trusting his absolute authority, Mrs. Higgins gently lets go of Melody's hand to exit the cell. Startled, Melody looks up in confusion as the Duke softly calls her name. The powerful noble kneels before her, offering a sincere apology for not protecting her sooner. He gently hands her the drop bag of coins, insisting she reclaim what belongs to her. Behind them, the greedy mother plots to use Melody's newfound wealth to escape her captivity. The dark promise of the fortune tempts her, offering a temporary chance for them to live together. Biting her nails in maniacal glee, the captive woman waits to strike her next move. Outside the palace, the desperate guard and the panicked elder try to plan their escape from the Duke's wrath. Looking down at the heavy pouch, Melody stands in silence under the watchful gaze of her savior. She silently contemplates a dark choice, wondering if she should ruin her own future to free her mother. Outside the heavy mansion doors, Mrs. Higgins waits anxiously for any sign of hope. Sensing her immense burden, the Duke reminds her that keeping her mother nearby will only bring perpetual sorrow. Melody stands in silence, the weight of his warning pressing heavily against her fragile heart. Desperate to secure the payout, the crazed mother screams through the iron bars, demanding the child stay by her side. Locked in the clutches of greed, a desperate mother tries to manipulate her own child for a taste of freedom. The dark-haired captive woman peers through the bars with a sinister, manipulative grin, desperately seeking the Duke's validation. Turning his back on the prisoner's pleas, the stoic Duke firmly directs Melody to leave the dark cell, while she quietly assures him she is unharmed. The crazed prisoner desperately screams after them through the bars, begging Melody not to abandon her. Melody turns back to her mother with deep sorrow, asking if she has even tried to look inside the bag. Devastated by her mother's persistent greed, Melody solemnly shakes her head, confirming that the bag does not contain the fortune she expected. The mother's face immediately contorts in bitter resentment as she brings up Melody's childhood, her manipulative mask fully slipping away. Reaching her hands frantically through the wooden bars, the mother continues to demand the bag under the false pretense of maternal duty. Yielding to the demand, a tearful Melody raises the heavy brown pouch, offering it to her greedy mother. In a shocking move of defiance, the pouch of gold is thrown away, leaving the mother completely stunned as Melody bids her a final farewell. The pouch bursts open on the stone floor, scattering brilliant gold coins everywhere in a glittering display of lost hope. The crazed mother gasps in disbelief, desperately clawing at the scattered gold coins through the bars while cursing the girl's wastefulness. Walking away with the Duke, Melody looks down in profound sorrow, realizing her mother's true love was never her but the cold coins she holds in her hands. The Duke gently warns her that keeping such wealth in a prison is futile, as she would have eventually been robbed anyway. A guard sternly orders the prisoner to hand over the gold, declaring that prisoners are forbidden from keeping possessions, while the mother screams in protest. As Melody climbs the stairs to leave the subterranean prison, her mother's furious accusations and screams of betrayal echo behind them. The insulting screams fade into a ridiculous echo, leaving the Duke sweating in exasperation at the sheer absurdity of the woman's greed. The scene shifts to the beautiful, sprawling cityscape of the capital as night begins to fall over the grand clock tower. Standing outside the royal carriage, Melody quietly reflects on the harsh words, assuring the Duke that she knows she is not what her mother claimed. The Duke offers his hand, inviting her to step forward into a new life where she is truly valued. He warmly invites her to return home with him, leaving the dark past behind for good. The Duke smiles gently under the starry night sky, asking for her thoughts on this fresh start. Overwhelmed by his unexpected kindness, Melody tears up, her gaze locking onto her protector's warm expression. Tears of relief stream down her face as she finally allows herself to feel safe in his presence. The scene transitions to the grand estate doors, where little Loretta runs down the steps in pure excitement, followed by a frantic maid. Under a canopy of cherry blossoms, Loretta leaps into Melody's arms for a tight embrace, as Melody silently vows to always stay by her beloved sister's side. A peaceful silence settles over the magnificent estate as a brilliant full moon illuminates the night. In a cozy bedroom, a maid gently tends to the scrapes on Melody's arm, beginning to heal her physical wounds. The maid playfully asks if Loretta resembled the Duke during her brave standoff, which catches Melody completely off guard. She fondly recalls Loretta's fierce, confident defense against the scheming elders, giggling at how much the young girl takes after her father. Suddenly, the door flies open to reveal little Loretta standing there, clutching a teddy bear and a jar of colorful candies. Climbing onto the bed, Loretta tenderly blows on Melody's bandaged arm to soothe the pain. Loretta climbs onto the bed, gently reassuring Melody that she must have been incredibly scared during her ordeal. Holding the teddy bear close, Melody softly speaks to Loretta, her heart swelling with gratitude. Melody wonders aloud why Loretta is always so exceptionally kind and protective of her. Blushing and looking down shyly, little Loretta admits she doesn't really know why, she just follows her heart. Loretta suddenly lunges forward, wrapping Melody in a warm, loving hug and expressing her immense affection. The two sisters share a deeply emotional embrace, their bond fully restored and stronger than ever. When Melody tearfully declares her mutual love, Loretta is hilariously startled, wondering why her sweet sister has burst into tears. Meanwhile, in the Duke's study, he questions a servant about the nanny's sudden absence since her return. The servant nervously explains that Madam Higgins retired to her room immediately, apologizing profusely while the Duke dismisses his anxiety. The Duke asks about their current condition and is relieved to hear that neither Higgins nor Melody sustained any severe injuries. Relieved by the good news, the Duke instructs him to arrange a thorough medical checkup for them later in the week. As he reviews a sealed letter in his hands, a thoughtful silence falls over the Duke. He suddenly commands the servant to have a specific room prepared and cleaned, prompting the servant to ask which one he means. The Duke reveals that his eldest son, Claude, is scheduled to arrive at the estate soon, setting the stage for a new arrival that could change everything. The family portrait of the Duke, Melody, and Loretta showcases their strong bond, teasing the arrival of the mysterious eldest son. A transitional card whispers the name of Lady Loretta, hinting at the shifting dynamics within the household. Back in the play quarters, a maid asks Loretta if she is sad because her drawing didn't turn out well, which the young lady quickly denies. When the maid asks if sharing her room with Melody is bothering her, Loretta looks out the window, quietly refuting the idea while hiding her true thoughts. Locked in her own mind, little Loretta struggles with a heavy secret that could threaten her place in the family. Unable to contain her sorrow, the little girl confides in her maid about her overwhelming worries. Startled by her lady's distress, the freckled maid gently urges her to share her hidden burden. In a moment of pure loyalty, the maid solemnly promises to keep her lady's secret safe. Seated together, the young girl confesses her desperate wish to remain with her father forever. She sadly reflects on her father's love, wondering how she can secure their future together. The painful memory of her brother declaring that Melody is not family weighs heavily on her heart. Trying to comfort her, the maid humorously wishes the Duke had simply given birth to Melody. The maid asks if she wants Melody to join their family, which Loretta eagerly confirms. A brilliant realization strikes the maid, who suggests another way to make Melody family. Loretta's eyes instantly sparkle with pure joy at the sudden life-changing possibility. But the maid quickly panics, realizing she might have suggested something far too scandalous. Another maid suddenly enters, sternly reprimanding her coworker for filling the child's head with nonsense. Terrified of the consequences, the first maid hysterically fears she might be fired on the spot. The second maid points out that proposing marriage to the Duke's son is completely absurd. Defending her suggestion, the first maid asks if anyone wouldn't think of marriage in this scenario. Their hushed argument is suddenly interrupted as a small voice speaks from behind them. Clasping her hands in excitement, an overjoyed Loretta reveals she heard the wonderful idea of marriage. Eager to act, Loretta runs off to find Melody while her shocked maid watches in sheer terror. Seeing her coworker's absolute despair, the older maid jokingly tells her to calculate her severance pay. Meanwhile, within the safety of the estate, the maids continue to tend to Melody's healing wounds. Watering the yellow flowers, Melody recalls the maid's warnings about her physical scars. She quietly accepts her reality, knowing a few more scars won't change her painful past. Suddenly, Mrs. Higgins sits up in bed, screaming in pure frustration and startling the young girl. The stern nanny fiercely demands to know why Melody is making absolutely no progress in her training. Melody turns back in shock, caught completely off guard by the nanny's sudden outburst. Trying to prove herself, Melody demonstrates her graceful walk, but Mrs. Higgins remains highly critical. Melody anxiously asks if her lack of grace is obvious, which the nanny bluntly confirms. To motivate the girl, the strict nanny threatens to reduce her precious afternoon snacks. In a dramatic chibi breakdown, Melody tearfully begs her grandmother to spare her treats. Melody happily celebrates saving her remaining snacks, leaving the stern nanny completely speechless. Suddenly, Mrs. Higgins collapses back onto the bed in exhaustion, sending Melody into a panic. Melody watches in deep worry as Mrs. Higgins silently doubts her own ability to raise the child. Melody asks if her painful headache has returned, but the stubborn nanny tells her to stay quiet. A heavy, emotional silence fills the room as Mrs. Higgins hides her growing pain. The nanny recalls Melody's tragic past, questioning if a harsh woman like her can truly heal the girl. Believing Melody deserves a gentler guardian, she silently watches the sweet girl offer her water. Melody turns around in surprise as the nanny softly calls out her name. Mrs. Higgins reveals that the Duke's eldest son is arriving tomorrow, catching Melody by surprise. Contemplating the timeline of the novel, Melody listens as the nanny explains the young master's routine. The nanny announces that Melody will have the crucial task of serving the young master his daily tea. Shocked by the sudden responsibility, Melody questions the decision, but the nanny insists it is for her own growth. She explains that as the Duke's guest, Melody must learn the dignity required to survive in high society. Mrs. Higgins emphasizes that practical real-world experience is far more valuable than temporary lessons. Melody asks if the Duke agreed to this to help her learn, and the nanny confirms it. When Melody doubts her own abilities, the nanny challenges her, forcing the girl to desperately clarify her intent. Finding her resolve, Melody confidently declares she will try her absolute best to succeed. Satisfied, Mrs. Higgins warns her to remain respectful and avoid upsetting the young master under any circumstances. Overwhelmed by the hidden warmth in her warnings, Melody suddenly rushes forward and hugs her tightly. With a tearful, radiant smile, Melody sincerely thanks her beloved grandmother for truly caring about her future. With absolute determination, the brown-haired girl vows to give her training her absolute all while her strict nanny watches in contemplative silence. A dark umbrella unfurls against the pouring rain as a new day begins to dawn over the grand estate. As a luxury carriage arrives in the storm, the gray-haired butler rushes to offer his umbrella to the esteemed passenger. Walking through the heavy downpour, the butler reminds his young master of his growth, while the young master expresses his deep respect for him. The butler opens the heavy double doors of the mansion, welcoming the young master back to the estate. Stepping inside the grand foyer, the blonde young master asks about his father, learning the duke has been summoned and the servants are asleep. The butler smiles warmly, explaining the young princess is resting while hinting at the arrival of another guest. Bathed in shimmering light, the handsome blonde young master stands as a symbol of absolute grace and elegance. The stormy clouds pass, revealing the estate's sprawling gardens bathed in bright, warm morning sunlight. Little Loretta squeals with pure delight, her face glowing with happiness under the sunny sky. Bending down, her older brother Claude smiles affectionately at his beloved little sister. Watching from a distance, Melody is completely stunned to see the young master has arrived much earlier than expected. Melody quietly observes their perfect, joyful world, wondering if Claude changed his schedule out of sheer longing to see Loretta. Known as the most handsome young man in the capital, Claude Baldwin's unmatched charm and outstanding abilities precede him. Inside the original novel, his boundless love for Loretta cemented his role as the ultimate protective elder brother. Spotting the guest, Claude politely bows and formally introduces himself to the startled girl. Melody stares at him, completely captivated by his breathtaking presence. She nervously introduces herself, but Claude gently reassures her that she can stand tall and raise her head. Gazing directly at him, Melody is utterly struck by his mesmerizing and flawless appearance. In a hilarious mental breakdown, Melody fawns over her previous life favorite character, completely overwhelmed by his dazzling aura. Finding her awkward hand gestures amusing, Claude curiously asks if there is something strange about his appearance. Blooming purple flower sways gently in the breeze, reflecting his quiet intrigue toward the unusual guest. Claude chuckles softly, thoroughly amused by her dramatic and expressive reactions. He warmly welcomes her to the estate, leaving Melody entirely mesmerized by his gentle demeanor. Suddenly, little Loretta runs up and pulls on Melody's dress to catch her attention. Looking up with wide, sparkly blue eyes, the young girl prepares to deliver a momentous question. Handing Melody her sun hat, Loretta claims she has an incredibly important inquiry to make. Loretta asks if they truly cherish each other, and Melody happily confirms her deep affection for the young lady. A beautiful pink cosmos flower stands out brightly against a soft, sparkling background. Holding the pink flower up, Loretta proudly and loudly demands that Melody marry her on the spot. Melody's face turns pale with sheer terror as she hears the scandalous proposal while Claude's frozen figure cracks in the background. Her green eyes widen in pure, unadulterated horror as the weight of the situation sinks in. Loretta gleefully explains that she will become a mighty protector to ensure Melody's absolute happiness. Lunging forward, the ecstatic little sister wraps her arms around Melody in a tight, affectionate embrace. An oppressive, chilling darkness suddenly creeps into the vibrant garden, signaling immense trouble. Turning around in dread, Melody is horrified to find Claude watching them with a freezing, dark glare. The doting brother smiles with terrifying intensity, his eyes shining with a chilling and dangerous possessiveness. Breaking out in a cold sweat, Melody desperately forces a smile, realizing her peaceful days are officially over. A decorative card warns that Claude is actually the most extreme, overprotective, sister-obsessed brother in the entire novel. Shifting back inside, Melody's feet tread nervously on the polished wooden floor of the mansion. Holding a delicate tea set, the young girl stands outside the ground double doors, trying to summon her courage. Her hands trundle slightly against the tray, recalling how excited she initially was for this special duty. She dreadfully imagines Claude turning into a literal demon who will interrogate her intentions toward his sister. Taking a deep breath, Melody steels her resolve to face her impending trial with dignity. Reaching out with a trembling hand, she knocks softly on the heavily decorated office door. To her surprise, the heavy door clicks open smoothly, revealing it was already unlocked. Reassuring herself that Loretta's marriage proposal was just innocent child's play, Melody convinces herself Claude has no reason to hate her. Stepping into the elegant study, she is greeted warmly by the charming young master. As she hands him the tea, Claude mentions he heard of her desire to learn capital etiquette, which she politely confirms. Suddenly, Claude's warm expression vanishes into a freezing, sinister side glance, coldly demanding to know if she intends to take Loretta's place. Melody passionately declares that her lady is the most important person in the world to her. Turning directly to Claude, the determined girl vows to remain by her lady's side forever. Claude repeats her words in a chilling mutter, processing her eternal promise to his beloved sister. Melody immediately breaks into a cold sweat, realizing she may have just provoked the young master's terrifying jealousy. Desperately waving her hands, Melody clarifies her innocent intent, while Claude coldly notes that he understands. With a polite smile, the overprotective brother bids her a chilling farewell as their fragile connection is symbolically severed. The massive office door slams shut right in her face, leaving her completely stunned in the empty corridor. Shaking in pure shock, Melody calls out to the empty hallway, utterly terrified by his sudden shift in attitude. A few days pass quietly over the estate, allowing the high-stakes tension to temporarily simmer down. Under a clear morning sky, the magnificent Baldwin mansion stands peaceful, hiding the drama unfolding within its walls. Seeking to mend their rift, Melody offers to share the story of how she first met Lady Loretta. Claude flatly rejects her offer as not tempting enough, leaving the poor girl groaning in dramatic defeat. Determined to break through his cold exterior, Melody steels her resolve to enter his room, accepting whatever hatred comes her way. She remembers his deeply confusing attitude, recalling how he once went out of his way to find a shaded spot for Loretta. Staring at his tall figure, Melody reflects on his hidden gentleness, realizing he might not actually hate her. With a sudden, heartwarming smile, Claude looks back and warmly confirms her hopeful thoughts. He places a hand over his heart, explaining that she is his family's lifesaver for rescuing his precious little sister. Melody is deeply moved as she remembers his sincere promise that they would never mistreat her. The peaceful moment is shattered as an outraged guest screams on the staircase, demanding to know why they cut ties with his trading association. The butler quickly ushers Melody away from the escalating scene, insisting that children shouldn't witness such ugly noble disputes. Curious and concerned, Melody asks what the screaming merchant did wrong, prompting the butler to prepare an explanation. An ominous aura fills the hallway as the butler grimly reveals that the man is a fraud. He explains that the Duke absolutely despises liars, a fatal trait that high society never forgives. Guilt strikes Melody like a physical blow as the chilling word liars echoes in her panicked mind. The next day, a deeply conflicted Melody stands before Claude and softly offers a quiet apology. She is haunted by the butler's words, knowing that her own position is built on a massive fabrication. Looking down in absolute dread, she realizes she cannot keep living this lie any longer. Steeling her trembling heart, she decides she must confess her secret to the young master, no matter the consequences. Melody bravely admits that she has been lying to him, catching the young master completely off guard. She confesses that she actually has no interest in high society etiquette and completely lacks the confidence to learn. To her surprise, Claude gently clears up her misunderstanding, explaining that true grace is not an inherited noble trait. Smiling warmly, the young master thanks her for her honesty, proving he values her truth far more than perfect manners. Melody sheepishly admits she returned the tea tray every day out of fear that he secretly despised her. Claude lets out a soft chuckle, warmly reassuring the anxious girl that he was never angry. However, her relief is short-lived as Claude drops a bombshell, telling her she wasn't entirely wrong. Melody freezes in absolute shock, her mind racing to comprehend his mysterious warning. Before she can ask for clarification, the enigmatic young master prepares to end their meeting. Bidding her a polite farewell, the study doors slide shut, leaving her with more questions than answers. A beautiful portrait captures a rare moment of peace as Claude, Melody, and little Loretta stand together. The next morning, a fresh tray of tea is prepared, signaling the start of another high-pressure duty. The mansion's maids crowd around Melody in pure envy, squealing over her exclusive daily meetings with the handsome young master. As they gush over Claude's breathtaking elegance, Melody can only smile awkwardly and sweat in secret panic. Walking down the quiet corridor, she nervously wonders if the servants suspect the tense truth behind their sessions. Standing before the grand study door, she hesitates to knock, fearing they might have overheard their dramatic conversation. Suddenly, she pauses in surprise as she realizes something is completely different about today. Melody stands silently outside the quiet room, holding her breath as she listens for any movement. To her absolute delight, she discovers that the terrifying young master is not home, throwing a silent celebration. Stepping into the massive, empty study, Melody is utterly awed by the endless shelves of books and grand decor. She recalls the headmaid's instructions to simply leave the tea on his desk and return the hot water if he is away. Melody carefully places the steaming teacups down, relieved to have escaped another intense trial, but what will happen when he returns? Delivering a simple tray of tea shouldn't be life-threatening, but Melody is about to step into a total disaster zone. She happily runs down the corridor, excited to share snacks with little Loretta. Just as she prepares to knock, the massive double doors suddenly swing open. Claude steps out unexpectedly, catching the young maid completely off guard. He looks deeply distressed, loudly lamenting the terrible timing of their encounter. Startled by his sudden appearance, Melody loses her footing and slips. The delicate porcelain teapot slips from her grasp, sailing through the air. Her eyes widen in pure horror as scalding water threatens to spill. Claude moves with lightning reflexes, lunging forward to shield her from danger. The teapot shatters violently on the floor, splashing hot water everywhere. A gasp escapes her as Claude's hand is painfully scalded in the chaos. Claude pins her safely to the ground, completely ignoring his own injuries. Panicking, Melody frantically screams for cold water to soothe his burn. She scrambles to fetch help, but Claude desperately grabs her arm. Holding her firmly, he ignores his pain to ask if she is hurt. Stunned by his selflessness, Melody falls into a completely silent shock. Claude gently requests her to cover her ears and count to 100. He holds her hand tightly, calmly reminding her that panicking solves nothing. He softly repeats his instruction for her to start counting immediately. Trusting him completely, Melody squeezes her eyes shut in sheer embarrassment. Amidst the darkness, she counts while hearing the loud sounds of cleanup. Reaching the final number, she cautiously opens her eyes to assess the room. She finds the study perfectly clean with Claude standing calmly before her. Claude flashes a dazzling smile, asking if she has finally calmed down. He gently inquires if she feels much better after her quiet count. Sits down, teasingly noting that she has a habit of lying to him. Guilt washes over Melody as she reflects on causing him physical harm. Claude apologizes, explaining he rushed back early just to see her arrive. He blushes slightly, complaining that she never looks him in the face. Bowing his head in sincere apology, Claude begs the stunned girl for forgiveness. He childishly confesses his deep jealousy over her closeness with Loretta. He explains the terrifyingly obsessive romantic nature inherent in his family. Claude chuckles softly as Melody quickly realizes the gravity of his confession. He lightly remarks on her stubbornness when it comes to taking advice. Leaning in close, the handsome young master locks his gaze onto her. He gestures elegantly while reminding her once more to remain calm. Tapping her forehead, Claude advises her to always act proud and flawless. Rubbing her forehead, Melody questions if this behavior is true capital etiquette. Claude looks on with satisfaction, noting that she is completely relaxed now. Smiling brightly, she warmly thanks the young master for his comforting words. He politely requests a brief moment to tend to other matters. A massive daunting stack of reference books sits on her study table. Melody writes furiously at her desk, utterly exhausted by her intense studies. She recalls his playful advice, realizing she has been completely played. Melody angrily complains about his teasing, pointing at his bandaged hand. Claude smiles charmingly, demanding she visit his room every single afternoon. A beautiful portrait shows the trio sharing a moment of absolute peace. Back in the study, Claude enjoys a warm cup of freshly brewed tea. He pauses in surprise, noticing Melody staring at him with intense focus. He gently asks if there is something bothering her curious mind. Claude's badly burned hand miraculously heals completely in just 2 days, defying all expectations. While the young master smiles with satisfaction, Melody laments his surprisingly devilish nature as she struggles with her endless writing tasks. Claude dumps a massive stack of travel records for Melody to copy, leaving her bewildered about the true meaning behind these mysterious documents. Exhausted but strangely determined, Melody slips down the stairs at night, still complaining about Claude's relentless work demands. Haunted by Claude's secretive attitude regarding his tasks, a drowsy Melody realizes she will never truly understand the enigmatic young master. Lost in her thoughts, Melody suddenly bumps into a towering figure in the dimly lit hallway and quickly stammers an apology. An icy, menacing aura suddenly fills the corridor, freezing Melody in her tracks. Stern, dark-haired man stares down at her with a terrifyingly cold gaze, leaving the young girl completely paralyzed with fear. He coldly turns away without a word, and Melody recognizes him as one of the hostile subordinates serving the family elders. Traumatic memories flood her mind of a time when cruel nobles would whisper about her past as a slave merchant's daughter. Stealing her resolve, Melody clutches her book tightly, refusing to let fear ruin her standing as the Duke's honored guest. She reminds herself that personal slights do not matter, especially since these hostile elders hate both her and little Loretta. As the shady subordinate walks away, Melody senses that a disastrous plot is already in motion. The maid suddenly calls out to Melody, interrupting her dark train of thought. The maid delivers the urgent news that the Duke himself is waiting to see her immediately. An exquisite green bow decorated with brilliant gold and jewels awaits Melody as an unexpected gift. Puzzled by the sudden present, Melody asks the Duke if the elders returned the gift. The Duke stares at her with a silent, unreadable expression that makes her feel instantly nervous. Softening his expression, the Duke gently chuckles and validates her cautious question. Overjoyed by his kindness, Melody beams with a radiant smile and warmly thanks him for the beautiful token. The Duke's sharp eyes suddenly lock onto the dark ink stains tarnishing the cuff of her clean white sleeve. Noticing his intense gaze, a flustered Melody quickly moves to explain the messy stains on her arm. She quickly bows her head, apologizing profusely for getting ink on the fine clothes he provided. Anxious thoughts race through her mind, fearing the Duke will view her as a clumsy and messy child. Instead of anger, the Duke silently reflects on how natural it is for a young child to have ink-stained sleeves. The Duke recalls the harsh environment of Melody's past, realizing why she constantly harbors such deep, unearned guilt. With deep fatherly warmth, he gently places his hand on her head to soothe her worries. Hoping to stop her constant apologies, the Duke watches as she still frantically stresses over dirtying his generous gift. Stunned by his gentle comfort, Melody looks up in confusion and softly stammers her thanks. He carefully places the stunning green bow into her hands, sealing his favor with this precious gift. Melody happily promises to cherish the bow, while the humble Duke modestly downplays his generous gift. When the Duke notices her deep fatigue and asks if she slept well, Melody nervously lies to keep him from worrying. As night falls once more, the calm atmosphere quickly shifts back to high-stakes suspense. Feeling guilty about her lie, Melody slips out of bed in the dead of night to carry out her secret mission. Standing before the quiet dressing room, she steels herself to stop a terrible incident from unfolding. She remembers the impending tragedy where the elder subordinates plan to ruin Loretta's beautiful dress, leaving the little sister heartbroken. Resolved to prevent this disaster, Melody plans to keep a nightly vigil and scream for help the moment she spots the intruders. Suddenly, a warm breath tickles her ear as Claude unexpectedly whispers her name from behind, shattering the silent night. Terrified by the sudden voice, Melody lets out a loud comical shriek that echoes down the empty hallway. She turns around to find the handsome young master standing right there, leaving her completely caught in the act. She quickly reviews her highly incriminating nightly behavior, realizing just how suspicious her actions must look to anyone else. In Claude's eyes, her late-night prowling marks her perfectly as an extremely suspicious intruder. Completely losing her cool, Melody frantically screams that she hasn't stolen a single thing yet. Claude slyly latches onto her unfortunate choice of words, highly amused by her accidental confession. While a flushed Melody desperately tries to backtrack, Claude playfully asks why she would ever try to steal an entire room. Relieved that he doesn't actually think she's a thief, Melody eagerly asks what he senses whenever they meet. He teasingly notes that despite all her complaints, she always executes every difficult task with absolute perfection. Her relief instantly shatters as Claude playfully suggests that if she were to steal, she would aim straight for the Duke's legendary ring. Claude bursts into bright laughter at her outrage, leaving Melody highly annoyed by his relentless teasing. Shifting back to a serious tone, the young master demands to know the real reason behind her late-night vigil. Unlocking forbidden memories from her past life, the brown-haired girl remembers that a cruel villain is destined to destroy little Loretta's dress. Unable to reveal her past life knowledge, Melody frantically tries to make up a believable excuse on the spot. Claude masterfully mimics her suspicious excuses, pointing out how incredibly convenient all of her accidental discoveries seem to be. Her nervous laughter and sweating face give her away completely as she struggles to salvage her terrible cover story. Claude gently scolds her, reminding her that she is still just a child who should avoid putting herself in danger. He advises her to slip away quietly and alert trustworthy adults rather than trying to handle dangerous situations on her own. Claude fixes her with a serious gaze, demanding to know if she truly understands the danger she was in. After agreeing to his words, Melody realizes she still hasn't resolved the immediate threat to Loretta's dress. Claude unleashes a dazzling, reassuring smile as he promises that he will handle everything now that she has told a reliable adult. Blinded by his radiant aura, Melody thanks him, though he insists his actions are purely to protect his adorable little sister. He firmly declares that it is past bedtime, ordering her back to her room despite her lingering hesitation. Realizing she might be too restless to sleep, Claude gently wraps his ornate coat around her shoulders as a reward for her good intentions. He gently takes her hand, leading her away with a soft command to follow him. Claude reassures her with a gentle gaze, promising that he has a way to put her to sleep within 10 minutes. Melody's overactive imagination goes wild as she frantically worries if he plans to knock her unconscious to prevent her from interfering. Staring up at the glowing full moon, Melody blushes deeply as she wonders what mysterious method he intends to use. The beautiful family portrait shines under a wave of warm light, hinting at the deep bonds growing within the grand estate. Claude reveals his secret weapon, preparing a warm cup of his own special recipe to help her relax. Feeling incredibly embarrassed about her wild assumptions, Melody happily sips the comforting, warm drink. She marvels at the sweet flavor, realizing it is infused with delicious honey as Claude looks on with satisfaction. Curious, Melody asks why he is still dressed in formal attire, prompting Claude to explain he just returned from attending a party on his father's behalf. Claude places the honey jar away while promising to increase the guards and alter the patrol times to ensure their safety. Swept away by his incredible efficiency, Melody marvels at how quickly and effortlessly the young master manages every crisis. Wrapped snugly in his oversized coat, Melody gazes at him with newfound respect, realizing how mature he truly is. Placing the empty cup down, she bids him a warm goodnight, ready to finally return to her bed. Before she can leave, Claude adjusts his coat over her shoulders, prompting her to wonder if he is just worried about her catching a chill. Her warm appreciation instantly vanishes when she realizes he only left the coat on her so she would take it to the laundry for him. The devilish young master playfully reminds her not to be late for her copying duties tomorrow, leaving her highly annoyed by his scheming nature. Claude delivers one final teasing blow by confidently praising his own good looks, leaving Melody completely speechless and red-faced. Her defensive shriek echoes loudly through the silent mansion, piercing the quiet night sky. Yawning tiredly, Melody grumbles about Claude's teasing nature as she slowly makes her way back down the dimly lit hallway. Despite her complaints, she silently acknowledges that his kindness successfully eased her anxiety and cleared her mind. Her relief instantly shatters into absolute horror as she opens the door to find a beautiful dress ripped to shreds on the floor. With trembling hands, Melody picks up a dirt-stained torn green ribbon from the ruined garments. Tears stream down her face as she realizes the intruders targeted her own precious dress as revenge for her nightly vigils. Despite her heartbreak, a sad smile touches her lips as she finds comfort in knowing she protected little Loretta from suffering this cruel fate. Standing alone in the dark, she steels her heart against the familiar pain, refusing to let the cruelty of others break her spirit. The next morning, a lavish carriage arrives at the grand estate as guests express their gratitude to the Duke. The hostile elders exchange tense looks, sensing that the Duke is silently urging them to leave his estate immediately. The Duke fixes them with an icy, menacing stare that instantly freezes the blood in their veins. Sweating under the pressure, the worried elders desperately try to regain their footing in the face of his overwhelming authority. They cautiously push their agenda, questioning if the Duke intends to make unilateral decisions without consulting the family council. And they warn him that hosting a low-status guest might make the family a laughingstock. The Duke coldly challenges them to name anyone who would dare to do so. Taken completely aback by the Duke's sharp retaliation, the hostile subordinate stammers in sudden panic. A suffocating aura of pure rage erupts from the Duke as he demands to know exactly who would dare mock his family name. Heavy silence in the courtyard becomes deafening as his majestic presence completely dominates the room. As the subordinate stammers about rumors in the capital, the Duke commands him to bring those gossiping nobles directly to him for a personal meeting. The elders desperately try to frame their hostility as genuine loyalty, claiming they only have his best interests at heart. Dropping all pretenses, they aggressively demand that the Duke expel Melody immediately to protect the household from her supposedly suspicious presence. The high-stakes conflict reaches a boiling point, leaving Melody's fate hanging in the balance as the elders push for her ultimate banishment. The high-stakes confrontation in the courtyard reaches a boiling point as the young girl stands firm under the watchful eyes of the entire estate. All eyes lock onto the pristine green ribbon glowing under the morning sun, the ultimate symbol of the Duke's favor. Nervous whispers spread like wildfire among the household staff as they watch the dangerous political standoff unfold. Enraged by her appearance, the hostile subordinate screams in protest, demanding she recognize her low standing. Unfazed by the hostile glares, Melody takes a resolute step forward, displaying a grace that defies her humble origins. Terrified of the unfolding chaos, a loyal maid desperately pleads with her to step back and beg for the Duke's forgiveness. In her heart, Melody knows she cannot simply back down if she wants to break free from this cycle of endless fear. Stealing her resolve, a burning fury takes over her mind as she prepares to confront the corrupt elders directly. She holds onto the memory of Claude's calming words, using his advice to steady her racing heartbeat. Recalling the young master's crucial warning, she resolves to keep her composure in the face of these venomous adults. The household watches in breathless anticipation, hoping the young girl can survive this brutal trial of wills. Standing tall before her oppressors, her quiet dignity commands the attention of everyone in the courtyard. The arrogant subordinate grits his teeth in pure disgust, utterly repulsed by her shameless confidence. He lashes out in a desperate bid to assert his superiority, branding her as a shameless criminal's child. Although his cruel insults hit home, Melody refuses to let him see her break. The mustached elder joins the assault, aggressively demanding her immediate removal from the estate. Before they can utter another word, the Duke steps forward like an immovable wall, silencing their venomous shouts with a single command. Stunned by his sudden intervention, Melody gazes up at the massive protective silhouette of her guardian. Taking matters into her own hands, she unties the green ribbon to demonstrate that she knows her place. The Duke listens intently as Melody calmly acknowledges her mother's crimes and her own precarious standing. She lays bare the truth, explaining why she could not allow the Duke's precious gift to be ruined. With a heavy heart, she looks at the damaged ribbon, admitting that it was the treasure she cherished above all else. Deeply hurt but unwavering, she holds her head high even as painful memories threaten to overwhelm her. The cruel noble scoffs at her words, accusing her of hypocrisy and asking why she didn't protect it better. In a stunning counterattack, Melody calls out the shameful hypocrisy of an adult who would sneak into a child's room to destroy a toy. The shocking accusation lands with pinpoint accuracy, leaving her accuser sweating and utterly speechless. She softly murmurs that she would have been far more careful had she known adults could behave so childishly. A warm, powerful hand lands on her shoulder, cutting through isolation and offering quiet comfort. Dropping all royal decorum, the Duke kneels to meet her at eye level, showing her absolute respect and protection. He softly tells her that she has no reason to apologize, easing the heavy guilt that has weighed on her young heart. Turning his attention back to the elders, his gentle expression instantly shifts into an icy glare of pure fury. The arrogant nobles freeze in terror, instantly realizing they have crossed a line from which there is no return. Desperately trying to defuse the situation, Melody gently tugs his vest and urges him to calm his anger. She selflessly begs the Duke not to punish them, claiming she is unhurt and lost nothing of importance. The Duke is highly impressed by her political cunning, realizing she is intentionally creating a massive debt of favor. He marvels at how a mere child understands that a debt of favor is the absolute best way to control one's enemies. Accepting her brilliant strategy, the Duke coldly commands the intruders to pack their things and leave his territory immediately. The mustachioed elder tries to threaten him with the family council's wrath, desperately clinging to his fading leverage. Unleashing a terrifying demonic aura, the Duke dares him to challenge his ultimate authority inside his own home. Completely defeated and thoroughly humiliated, the corrupt elders flee the grand estate in a panicked rush. With the threat finally neutralized, the relieved maid gently ushers Melody back inside the safety of the mansion. Clutching her ruined ribbon, Melody quietly agrees, ready to put this exhausting battle behind her. As night blankets the mansion, a peaceful calm returns to the halls, though the emotional scars of the day remain. Back in her quiet chambers, Melody stares down in silent sorrow, mourning the loss of the only gift she cherished. Suddenly, a loud, indignant shout shatters the peaceful night air, signaling a new visitor has entered her room. The hot-tempered headmaid furiously stitches the ribbon back together, cursing the corrupt elders with every single thread. She proudly reveals her masterpiece, a beautifully restored green bow adorned with an adorable hand-stitched little sheep. While dramatically complaining about her failing eyesight, the stubborn woman hides her deep affection under layers of grumbling. Overwhelmed by this unexpected kindness, Melody beams with absolute joy, eagerly thanking her wonderful caretaker. As a warm light fills her heart, Melody realizes she's no longer alone, surrounded by people who truly care for her safety and happiness. Clutching her beautifully restored bow, Melody's heart warms as she prepares to face the night, little knowing the emotional storm that lies ahead. Cool, mocking voices of her past tormentors echo in her mind, blaming her for failing to protect her most precious possession. Despite the bow being mended, Melody collapses in tears as she remembers the malice of the adults who destroyed her dress. She quickly tries to shake off her dark thoughts, determined to cherish the headmaid's heartfelt effort. Walking through her empty room, a crushing realization of her vulnerability weighs heavily on her small shoulders. Clasping the green bow to her chest, she allows her tears to flow freely in the quiet isolation of the night. Crouching on the cold floor, she softly apologizes to the Duke in her heart for being unable to keep his precious gift flawless. Sobbing uncontrollably, the young girl lets out all the pent-up pain and fear she has been forced to hide. Suddenly, a soft, polite knock at her door startles her out of her deep sorrow. Panicking, Melody desperately tries to wipe her tear-stained face, knowing she cannot let anyone see her in this state. She decides to stay completely still, hoping whoever is at the door will assume she has already fallen asleep. Outside her door, the visitor assumes she is asleep and gently suggests they leave her to rest. Voice outside speaks with gentle understanding, acknowledging the deep sorrow Melody must be feeling. Melody's eyes widen as she realizes little Loretta came all the way to her room out of pure worry for her. Recognizing that Loretta has already seen her at her worst, she decides it is okay to open the door to her. She fondly remembers how the sweet child would always offer her warm, comforting hugs whenever she felt sad. Eager to receive that pure warmth, Melody rushes to the door as fast as her legs can carry her. She throws the door open with a hopeful cry, expecting to see the adorable little girl waiting for her. Instead of Loretta, she is shocked to find the young master standing before her under the dim light. Looking around in utter confusion, Melody immediately demands to know where the little lady is gone. The young master wears a sheepish grin as he guiltily confesses to fabricating the story about Loretta. Outraged and deeply humiliated by his trickery, Melody slams the door shut right in his face. Leaning against the closed door, she tearfully screams at him to go away while he desperately apologizes from the hallway. Through the thick wood, the young master gently explains that he only lied because he was deeply worried about her pretending to be fine. Melody gasps in surprise when he reveals that Loretta was actually the very first one to notice her hidden sadness. He recalls how the perceptive little girl had watched Melody put on a brave face earlier and immediately wanted to comfort her. Realizing his sister's genuine concern, Melody quietly asks why the young master came in her place instead. The blonde boy blushes slightly, finding it incredibly awkward to admit his own protective feelings aloud. Seizing the opportunity, Melody flings the door open again and teasingly accuses him of being jealous of his sister's affection. Amused by her sudden spark, the young master smiles and offers her a clean handkerchief to wipe her tears. Still defensive, Melody huffs that she will ruin his handkerchief, but he playfully tells her he does not mind at all. As she wipes her face, she asks about Loretta again, prompting him to tease her for slipping back into formal titles. He leans in with a playful gaze, teasingly pointing out that she never makes a mistake when calling him by his actual name. Quickly laughs it off, advising her not to look so displeased since she is incredibly special to his little sister. The heavy atmosphere completely dissipates as he gently asks if she feels any better, earning a quiet, hiccuping response. Melody blushes furiously over her embarrassing hiccups while the young master quietly finds her reaction absolutely adorable. Her eyes widen in confusion when he suddenly mutters another remark under his breath. Shrouded in a warm, glowing light, he smoothly covers his tracks by claiming he simply wants them both to visit Loretta soon. Instantly suspicious of his smooth-talking nature, Melody vows to never fall for his deceptive, devilish charms again. Dropping his teasing act, he holds out his hand with a sincere smile, asking her to trust him just this once. Surrounded by soft light and blooming flowers, Melody looks down at his outstretched hand, wondering what promise he means. As they walk together under the glowing full moon, Melody quietly questions where they are heading, realizing it is not Loretta's room. Holding her hand firmly, the young master guides her through the dark hallways, reminding her of the promise she made yesterday. He gently pushes open a pair of grand wooden doors, revealing a warm, inviting light spilling from within. Stepping inside, Melody gasps in pure wonder as she gazes at the majestic sight before her eyes. She finds herself standing in a breathtaking multi-story library centered around a magnificent indoor tree. Towering bookshelves filled with endless knowledge surround them, bathed in a soft, magical glow. Guided by his lantern, she steps deeper into the grand archive, admitting she has never seen anything so spectacular. When she asks what they are doing there so late, the young master flashes a mischievous grin and reminds her of her copying duties. Instantly deadpan, Melody sighs in defeat as she remembers his teasing warning, realizing his kindness was just a clever trap to get her to work. Feeling manipulated, she grudgingly follows him through the dark hallways as he outlines her task for the night. She quietly questions why they are in this massive, secret archive instead of his usual personal library. Stepping into the light, the young master directs her attention to a workspace prepared for her. He presents a beautifully ornate red notebook and instructs her to write her name on it. Realizing this is her own personal record book, she stares in surprise as he urges her to claim it. Stealing her resolve, she picks up the fountain pen to make her mark. Under his quiet supervision, she carefully inscribes her name onto the crisp page. A sudden wave of deep appreciation washes over her, validating her long hours of hard work. She gazes down at the signed notebook, a quiet sense of pride blooming within her heart. Overcome with emotion, she realizes how much the simple act of ownership truly means to her. Having her painstaking efforts officially recognized feels like the ultimate heartfelt reward. When she playfully refuses to hand it over, the young master mischievously threatens to withhold his preservation magic. He gently retrieves the book, explaining the Duke family's immense respect for preserved historical records. He reveals that even seemingly minor logs can become invaluable research material for future generations. Stunned by his grand claim, she points out that her notes only contain simple weather logs. He counters that detailed weather patterns are crucial historical data that shape empire-defining decisions. Despite his grand explanation, she quietly doubts her ability to ever impact the future. He warmly assures her that a future researcher will undoubtedly find her meticulously organized notes precious. Confident in her worth, he hands her the magically preserved book to place on the shelves. She spots an open slot on the towering shelves and asks if she should put it there. With a gentle nod, she slides the 7th volume perfectly into place, completing her collection. As they walk together, the young master shares a fascinating detail about how future scholars cite original sources. He explains that any future research paper utilizing her logs will officially credit her name. Shocked by the implication, she protests that she is not actually part of his noble family. Sensing her hesitation, he pauses on the stairs to offer a surprisingly direct solution. Leaning down to her eye level, he teasingly whispers a shocking proposal to resolve her dilemma. Overwhelmed by his sudden, casual mention of marriage, she completely loses her composure and yells in panic. He reveals that little Loretta suggested the idea, prompting Melody to quickly dismiss it as a background mismatch. Her heart flutters as she recalls a powerful, open-minded statement about ignoring societal class for love. When he dramatically feigns offense, she vigorously defends her absolute adoration for his sweet little sister. She passionately declares that she wishes she could stay by Loretta's side for the rest of her life. Clenching her fists with fiery determination, she reaffirms her deep devotion to the sweet young lady. The young master softly repeats her words under his breath, a subtle, thoughtful expression crossing his face. A sudden wave of dread washes over her as she realizes she might have just walked into another verbal trap. The blonde boy turns his head away, trying to hide a sudden, embarrassed reaction to her unfiltered declaration. Flusteredly waving her hands, she desperately tries to explain that Loretta deserves a far more distinguished partner. When he accuses her of playing matchmaker, she desperately tries to play down her romantic daydreams. Satisfied with their lighthearted exchange, he turns and invites her to follow him down the hall. He reveals that they are finally heading to Loretta's chambers, fulfilling his initial promise. The moment they arrive, the little blonde girl leaps forward with absolute joy, asking about the gift. Pulling the sweet girl into a warm embrace, Melody finally learns that this entire late-night trip was carefully planned. Amidst the chaos of his teasing marriage proposal, the brilliant significance of her preserved notebook finally clicks. A profound sense of peace settles over her as she realizes she is truly cherished by this family. Loretta eagerly asks if she liked her gift, prompting Melody to look toward the blushing young master. Stricken with sudden adorable confusion, she blinks as she processes the depth of their thoughtfulness. Gracing them both with a radiant, genuine smile, she prepares to deliver her heartfelt answer. Clasping her hands tightly, she softly confesses how deeply touched she is by their kindness. While the young girl celebrates her success, the blonde boy quietly tries to hide his growing embarrassment. She wraps the sweet child in another tender, loving hug, cementing a bond that nothing can tear apart. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the mansion, a quill scratches against parchment as a crucial decision regarding her future begins to take shape. The dark-haired Duke sits at his grand desk discussing Melody's potential adoption candidates with his silver-haired butler as gravity settles over the room. Looking at his master, the silver-haired butler suggests the idea of the Duke directly adopting the girl himself. The young black-haired boy aggressively objects to the idea of becoming siblings with her, throwing a dramatic tantrum. Gazing out the window, the butler proposes officially sponsoring her to secure her place in the family instead. Gently setting down his pen, the Duke admits that their current circumstances make any decision incredibly difficult. The dark memory of the imprisoned slave trader looms heavily over the Duke as he learns her execution date has been set. Standing behind him, the butler reveals that the condemned prisoner has made one final desperate request. Alone in his study, the Duke contemplates the prisoner's selfish plea to see her daughter one last time before dying. Sitting across from Melody in the vast library, the Duke prepares to deliver the heavy news of her mother's request. Clenching her hands against her blue dress, Melody firmly declares her desire to sever all ties with her mother. Gesturing calmly, the Duke explains her rights as her guardian, confirming she is under no obligation to meet her. The Duke observes her closely, noting how the weight of the situation changes entirely when it involves her safety. Looking down with deep hesitation, Melody struggles with the daunting choice to reject her biological mother. Shadows of chains and thorns frame the cold truth that her mother is merely trying to relieve her own guilt. A terrifying phantom of her mother wraps around Melody, mocking her with guilt and invoking her deepest fears of abandonment. The Duke gently offers her the chance to visit her mother briefly if she harbors any lingering desire to do so. Looking up, Melody quietly declines, realizing her mother never truly loved her as a daughter. She turns her head away, accepting the heartbreaking reality that some bonds can never be repaired. She recalls her childhood, remembering how her mother only looked at her when there was money to be made. Melody looks down sadly as she remembers how her desperate efforts to win her mother's approval were always in vain. Sitting at the tea table, she tells the Duke that her mother can never bring her true happiness. Gripping her sleeve, Melody desperately pleads to stay away so she won't be hurt any further. Staring ahead with her bright green eyes, she softly thanks the Duke for his understanding and protection. Sitting quietly in her chair, Melody realizes that sitting away is the only path to healing. The Duke feels a deep pang of sorrow, recognizing that her rapid maturity is the result of deep childhood wounds. Despite her pain, Melody breaks into a warm, resilient smile that illuminates the quiet library. The Duke decides to take matters into his own hands and sign the rejection paper on her behalf. Melody quickly asks if she can sign the document herself, surprising the Duke with her sudden request. She reflects on how leaving her records in the library made her feel like a permanent part of this family. With a determined look, she requests to sign the document herself to officially close this painful chapter of her life. Her green eyes shine as she feels a profound sense of liberation from her mother's dark shadow. Looking at her with soft admiration, the Duke graces her with a gentle, supportive smile. Swift footsteps click against the floor as the scene transitions to a brand new day of departures. Inside a luxurious carriage, the blonde young master kindly reassures Melody that she does not need to rush. He playfully teases her for running out without her gloves, causing her to blush in embarrassment. As the carriage rolls through the streets, Melody admires his elegant leather gloves, sparking a warm conversation. The blonde boy holds out a glove, explaining it was a cherished birthday gift from his father. Melody gently takes the oversized leather glove, feeling the warmth of his family's affection. She asks if the Duke is doing well, prompting the blonde boy to explain his father's grueling political battles. A sudden wave of guilt washes over Melody as she worries her troubles are causing the Duke's exhaustion. The blonde boy watches her carefully, sensing her sudden shift in mood and rising anxiety. He quickly reassures her that children do not need to carry such heavy burdens. Melody stares at the large glove in her hands, wishing she wasn't always treated like a fragile child. Looking closely, she marvels at how incredibly mature he seems despite only being 4 years older than her. She fits her small hand into his glove, questioning when she will finally grow up to be like him. The bland boy smiles warmly and suddenly asks her when her birthday is. Her expression falters as she sadly admits she barely remembers the date of her birth. Sensing her distress, the blonde boy's blue eyes soften as he mentally notes never to touch upon her painful past again. To ease the tension, Melody breaks into a sweet, comforting smile that puts his mind at ease. Looking out at a beautiful field, she decides that she will celebrate her birthday whenever the yellow spring flowers bloom. A sudden, mysterious determination flashes across the blonde young master's face as a master plan begins to form in his mind. He whispers a quiet promise to celebrate her birthday the very moment the winter cold finally fades away. Outside, the heavy carriage jolts to a sudden halt as an unexpected voice signals their arrival. The massive ancient gates of a towering stone castle loom ahead, welcoming them to the heart of the capital. He smiles warmly at Melody, announcing that they have finally reached their intended destination. Reaching out of the carriage window, he hands their official identification papers to the heavily armored gatekeeper. The castle guard formally clears their passage, addressing the young master by his prestigious noble title. Suddenly, one of the heavily armored guards leans in close, peering intently through the carriage window straight at Melody. The young master's expression turns icy with rage, deeply offended by the guard's sheer audacity and disrespect. Through the narrow slit of his steel visor, the guard whispers her name in absolute breathless disbelief. Melody freezes in sheer panic inside the carriage, her heart pounding as she wonders who could possibly recognize her here. The knight quickly lifts his heavy helmet to reveal his face, desperate to confirm if it is truly her. Her eyes widen in complete shock as a wave of sudden recognition washes over her. Instantly, a flood of beautiful childhood memories rushes back as she recognizes her dearest childhood friend, Isaiah. The present fades away into an oppressive darkness as her mind drifts back to the painful days of her past. Sunlight filters through the green canopy of the forest, returning to a pivotal day from her childhood. A young, tearful Melody wanders down a quiet path, crying bitterly after being cruelly teased by the local children. She rubs her eyes in frustration, desperately trying to hide her tears beneath the shade of the trees. Suddenly, a young red-haired Isaiah aggressively grabs the main bully by his hood, demanding to know who made her cry. Isaiah holds the bully down with fierce determination, ready to do whatever it takes to defend his precious friend. He demands that the bully pay for his cruel actions and return Melody's stolen belongings immediately. He explains to Melody that standing up to their tormentors is the only way to make them stop forever. The kids reveal that the bully went so far as to throw her shoe high up into a tree branch. Isaiah demands that the bully experience the exact same humiliation he forced upon Melody. The scene shifts back to earlier that day, where the arrogant bully was bragging to the village kids about his expensive birthday present. He proudly showed off his brand new high-quality leather shoes to the envious crowd. He then mockingly pointed at Melody, cruelly calling her a criminal's kid and making fun of her cheap, worn-out shoes. Melody looked down in silent humiliation, clutching her clothes as the hurtful insults cut deep. She nervously shifted her plain, dusty shoes, wishing she didn't have to endure such mockery. In a brilliant act of defiance, young Isaiah suddenly snatched the bully's prized leather shoes and handed them straight to Melody. Melody hesitated in sheer panic, terrified of the consequences if the village adults caught them. Isaiah urged her to hurry up and throw them, determined to give the bully a taste of his own medicine. The bully watched in sheer horror, realizing his precious new shoes were about to meet a terrible fate. With a swift and decisive fling, the shoes were launched high into the air. The bully fled in tears as Melody desperately tried to hold Isaiah back from chasing him any further. Melody softly explained that she didn't want to hurt others even if they treated her poorly first. Isaiah frustratedly argued that showing too much kindness would only invite more trouble from bullies. He stared at her in silence, deeply touched by her gentle, pure-hearted nature. He playfully pinched her cheeks, making her promise to always tell him whenever someone bothered her. He proudly declared his dream to become a great knight to protect her, ignoring his guardian's desire for him to study medicine. A bright, radiant smile spread across young Melody's face, her heart finally filled with warmth and joy. Isaiah smiled back gently, making a silent vow to always be her ultimate protector. He suddenly handed her the shoes, instructing her to head home quickly while he handled the rest. Melody called out in worry as Isaiah ran off barefoot into the distance, refusing to let her follow. Tossing and turning in her bed that night, Melody couldn't stop worrying about whether Isaiah made it home safely. Suddenly, a soft, repetitive tapping at her window broke the quiet of the night. She sat up in surprise as she spotted her lost shoe sitting neatly on the windowsill. Looking out the window, she caught sight of Isaiah running barefoot down the dark road below. Despite the cold, rough ground, he ran into the night with a proud and satisfied heart. Clutching her retrieved shoe close to her chest, Melody smiled with deep gratitude, knowing she would never be truly alone. In a shocking turn of events, Melody is swept off her feet by an unexpectedly familiar face. Spotting her childhood friend, she marvels at how much Isaiah has grown, while he playfully teases her for still being as tiny as ever and asks if she has grown even a single centimeter taller. Annoyed by the lighthearted teasing, Melody adamantly insists that she has indeed grown, though Isaiah quickly shuts her down with a blunt denial, much to the amusement of the blonde young master watching from the carriage window. Sporting a playful smirk, the red-haired knight points out that she always has a telltale expression whenever she is genuinely angry. Caught red-handed in her little lie, a chibi Melody flusteredly covers her mouth as the truth of her height is humorously exposed. Stepping in to resolve the commotion, the blonde young master politely asks the senior knight, Sir Baldwin, if he can borrow his disciple since they clearly share a past. After securing permission, the blonde young master requests that they arrange another place to talk, which the cooperative knight readily agrees to coordinate. Showing his characteristic nobility, the blonde young master warmly invites Melody and her old friend to sit inside the carriage to comfortably continue their reunion. Grateful for the generous offer, they happily accept his courtesy as the carriage prepares to depart. Squeezing his bulky armor into the vehicle, Isaiah bluntly tells Melody to move aside to make room, leaving her momentarily startled by his lack of hesitation. Watching the interaction, the blonde young master is silently appalled by the knight's complete lack of etiquette and disrespectful behavior toward a lady. Isaiah belatedly thanks the young master, mistakenly addressing him by an overly grand title, which Melody quickly and embarrassedly corrects. As the carriage rolls through the majestic castle gates, Isaiah continues to ask why such a high-ranking noble is traveling with her. Melody nervously explains her connection to the Duke's family, prompting a thoughtful hum of understanding from her childhood friend. Eyeing a plate of exquisite chocolates on the table, the red-haired knight excitedly asks if he can pack them up. Isaiah explains how much training knights crave sugar, causing Melody intense embarrassment, though the young master generously tells him to take as many as he likes. Delightedly laughing, Melody realizes that despite his physical growth, Isaiah's sweet habit of sharing treats with his friends has remained completely unchanged. Suddenly, a spark of sudden recollection flashes across the young knight's face. In a swift, dramatic movement, the heavy iron armor clangs against the floor as he drops to his knee. He wonders aloud if it is too late to offer his formal gratitude to the young master. Dropping into a solemn, respectful kneel, the knight addresses the noble youth with absolute sincerity. When the confused noble asks why he is bowing, Isaiah explains that it is only proper for him to thank the family for taking such good care of Melody. The blonde young master's expression turns incredibly icy, utterly speechless that a mere knight would dare act as if he has the authority to thank them on Melody's behalf. A wave of quiet fury washes over the young master as he wonders who this arrogant knight thinks he is to speak for her. Sensing the sudden, suffocating drop in temperature inside the carriage, a bewildered Melody looks between them in confusion. Staring at the back of Isaiah's head, a sudden spark of memory begins to tingle in Melody's mind. Instantly realizing something, she swiftly snatches up a rolled-up book from the carriage table. As the young master coldly prepares to reject the knight's gratitude, an ominous fiery aura suddenly erupts from a silent Melody behind them. A resounding, bone-shattering smack echoes right out of the carriage window, scattering the birds in sheer terror. The scene transitions to the majestic tower as the hilarious chaos unfolds within the carriage walls. Melody vividly recalls a past promise to Isaiah's mother, who had begged her to knock some sense into her ungrateful son if they ever crossed paths in the capital. Unleashing her righteous fury, an angry Melody demands to know why he hasn't written a single letter to his worried mother. With Isaiah comically face down on the floor, she angrily reminds him of how much his mother has been worrying about him this entire time. Isaiah quickly defends himself, explaining that since he ran away to become a knight instead of a doctor, he is terrified of disappointing her any further. Shattering his excuse, Melody points out that ignoring his mother completely is far worse than any career choice he could ever make. Thoroughly defeated by her logic, a humbled Isaiah finally relents and quietly promises that he will write her a letter. When he suggests a ridiculously short message, Melody instantly shuts it down, demanding he actually put some thought and effort into his words. Struggling to find the right words to write, Isaiah realizes his only real strength lies in speaking rather than writing. Realizing neither of them has ever actually written a proper letter before, they turn their heads in unison to face their noble companion. Their gazes lock onto the only person in the carriage who actually possesses any formal education and letter-writing experience. Taken aback by their intense, pleading stares, the blonde young master points to himself in sheer disbelief. The carriage smoothly glides down the scenic streets of the capital, carrying them toward their next destination. Melody softly apologizes for dragging him along on her personal errands, but he warmly reassures her that he doesn't mind at all. She quietly laments getting so carried away talking with Isaiah that they completely missed the prison administration office's operating hours. With a gentle smile, the young master reassures her that they have plenty of time and can easily return another day. He graciously adds that assisting with the letter is no trouble at all, especially since it is a request from their esteemed guest. Her eyes fill with deep gratitude at his kindness, completely moved by how protective and supportive he is being. However, his internal thoughts reveal his protective nature, determined to keep the boorish knight from bad influencing her anymore. Sweating bullets as she notices his subtle hostility, Melody realizes with comedic dread that the young master secretly dislikes her childhood friend. Reflecting on her friend's past boasts, Melody recalls how she had always assumed Isaiah possessed superior noble etiquette. As Isaiah proudly boasts that his training master taught him perfect knightly manners, a hilarious flashback reveals his perfect etiquette was actually beaten into him through threats of being fed raw branches. Isaiah catches her completely off guard by suddenly presenting her with a green stalk of foxtail grass. With a warm, smug grin, the red-haired boy proudly explains that bringing a host's favorite gift is basic etiquette. Flustered by his unexpected thoughtfulness, Melody softly blushes and accepts the humble childhood token. Deeply touched, she fondly recalls their childhood days of running wild through the woods and gathering foxtails together. Feeling guilty for her initial grumpy attitude, Melody turns to him and gently apologizes for acting so distant. Isaiah playfully brushes the grass against her forehead, teasing that she still needs to practice being grumpy. A bright, joyful smile spreads across Melody's face as she tightly cradles the simple gift close to her heart. When she asks why he came so early, Isaiah explains that the young master promised to teach him letter writing. Proudly sipping his tea, Isaiah declares that keeping promises to his mother is his duty as an aspiring knight. Melody points out that the young master Claude has a grueling mountain of academy work to complete today. Seeing her hesitation, he cute pouts with imaginary puppy ears, asking if she is really too busy to play. Suddenly, a massive clatter echoes through the room as the parlor door is forcefully thrown open. Under immense stress, Claude desperately worries that his innocent little sister will be corrupted by the wild knight. Melody quickly reassures the panicked noble that Isaiah is actually the most reliable boy from her village. Her reassurance is immediately shattered when Isaiah comically licks the remaining sugar straight out of his teacup. To make matters worse, the butler suddenly announces that Lady Loretta is eager to meet their guest. In a spectacular moment of unified panic, both Claude and Melody scream in absolute refusal. Rejected and heartbroken, little Loretta peers through the door with massive, tear-filled blue eyes. A wave of absolute guilt strikes Claude and Melody, utterly defeated by the child's weaponized tears. Completely folding, Claude instantly scoops Loretta into the air, promising to grant her every single wish. Isaiah dryly observes that the young master is doing an excellent job of completely spoiling his sister. With steady focus, Isaiah begins carefully writing out his message in elegant cursive script. Melody watches in pure astonishment as her friend rapidly masters the art of writing under Claude's guidance. Claude turns to Melody and politely offers her a blank sheet, encouraging her to write a letter too. Staring at the massive blank page, Melody feels completely overwhelmed and lost. Seeing her hesitation, Claude kindly advises her to start simple, though she admits she has no one to write to. Claude gently prompts her to think of anyone who has recently helped her. When she laments having too many helpers, Claude suggests she focus on the absolute most recent one. Leaning in close, the blonde young master prepares to drop a very obvious hint about his identity. Whispering softly into her ear, Claude suggests that this helpful person is actually standing incredibly close to her. Claude flashes a dazzling, confident smile, fully expecting her to realize he is talking about himself. Overwhelmed by sweetness, Melody pulls the adorable young lady into a massive, teary-eyed embrace. Melody firmly hands over his things, demanding he write to his worried mother at least once a week. We kick off with a sudden clash of ideals as the brown-haired Melody looks up in complete disbelief, questioning why she is suddenly being asked to make such a serious promise. Tensions flare as the red-haired Isaiah yells out in frustration, explaining that his frantic demand is simply because she is far too gentle for her own good. Isaiah turns and walks away silently, clutching a heavy sack. In a poignant moment, Isaiah reflects on their emotional reunion at the prison gates, admitting he felt a chaotic mix of joy and deep worry. Clad in silver armor, Isaiah watches her carriage, silently wondering if she had returned to face her own mother. Relieved that she avoided her mother, Isaiah urges Melody to ignore any final requests, declaring that letting go is the ultimate revenge. Clasping her hands, Melody softly points out how much Isaiah has changed since he once advised her to use violence to keep others away. Melody explains she expected him to demand a harsher vengeance, asking if her mother will truly lose her mind if they never meet. The dark prison echoes with the screams of a hysterical mother demanding her daughter, leaving Isaiah to question if Melody witnessed the madness firsthand. Startled by her question, Isaiah stammers nervously before suggesting that only the prison knights should venture into that dark place. Scratching his red hair in frustration, Isaiah warns her once more to stay away from her mother to avoid further pain. Close-up of Isaiah looking surprised as Melody softly admits she already knows the truth. Isaiah gasps in surprise as Melody stands tall, confidently announcing that she has finally made her final choice. Wearing a beautiful, bright smile, Melody resolves to never let herself suffer from her past ever again. Shifting to the sunny mansion grounds, Melody asks if it will take a long time for her letter to be delivered. Standing by the carriage, the purple-haired coachman reassures her that the delivery will be swift, arriving within a single week. Feeling relieved, Melody hopes she will receive news of Isaiah before the harsh winter chill sets in. The coachman promises to safely deliver Claude's letter, then casually asks where he should send the young master's upcoming birthday gifts. Melody is completely caught off guard, wide-eyed with shock as she hears about Claude's upcoming birthday. As the coachman jokes about having too many presents, Melody panics inwardly, realizing Claude's special day is just around the corner. Claude calmly downplays the scale, while the coachman explains they must prepare extra carriages for the massive influx of noble gifts. With a warm laugh, the friendly coachman mentions they will also plan grand celebrations for Loretta and Melody's birthdays. And Melody's heart skips a beat as she gasps in pure shock, completely stunned by the mention of her own birthday. Melody nervously stammers that her birthday is in the spring, prompting a suspicious Claude to demand the exact day. Melody squeezes her hands together, smiling sheepishly to hide her sudden panic. Sensing her distress, the coachman panics inwardly, realizing Melody doesn't even know her own birth date. Melody playfully suggests that not knowing her birthday means she can receive gifts on any spring day, which the coachman quickly and nervously agrees with. Claude stares at her in silence, quietly warning her that a massive crowd will be attending the grand event. Sweating profusely from the awkward moment, the coachman quickly bows out and bids them both farewell. The heavy carriage rattles loudly as it speeds away, leaving Claude and Melody alone in the courtyard. Melody gasps in surprise as Claude gently rests a reassuring hand on her shoulder, breaking her lonely thoughts. Looking down at her, Claude notes that she seems deeply curious about her forgotten birth date. Claude smiles warmly and offers a gentle apology, explaining he only wants to bring joy to such a kind-hearted girl. Claude points out that she always shapes her choices around other people's desires, mentioning that his father wants her to visit her mother. Panicking, Melody waves her hands frantically to clear up the misunderstanding, denying she's only acting on the Duke's wishes. Melody recalls how the Duke deeply respected her personal feelings, though Claude notes the fatherly worry lingering in his eyes. Claude gently advises her to meet her mother, suggesting she might have forgotten something critically important. Surrounded by brilliant sunlight, Melody stands firm in her resolute decision to avoid her mother at all costs. Melody consoles herself, thinking that not knowing her own birthday is perfectly fine as long as she has peace. Looking up at the drifting clouds, Melody's mind wanders back to the Duke, wondering why he remained completely silent. Melody clutches her dress tightly, her eyes filled with quiet sadness. Recalling a sweet memory of Loretta explaining how wet pine cones warm the air, Melody smiles, realizing her worries instantly vanish around her friend. The elegant door clicks open as the elderly butler steps inside, announcing that Melody is an unexpected visitor. Just when the brown-haired Melody thinks her morning cannot get any more complicated, the gray-haired butler suddenly announces that she has an unexpected guest waiting for her. Panic instantly strikes her as she sweat drops, immediately assuming her chaotic, red-haired childhood friend Isaiah has returned early to cause more trouble. Melody frantically bows and apologizes to the butler, promising to scold her friend, only for the butler to warmly clarify that her guest is someone else entirely. She blinks in total confusion, completely caught off guard by the revelation that the visitor is not her childhood friend. The door swings open to reveal a friendly, purple-haired mailman with red glasses, smiling warmly while holding a massive, colorful bouquet of flowers. Melody is utterly stunned to see the royal mailman standing on her doorstep with such a beautiful gift. The smiling mailman steps forward and happily presents the gorgeous flowers, confirming they are exclusively for her. He sheepishly scratches his face, admitting that his previous insensitive comments about her lacking a real birthday have been weighing heavily on his conscience. Wide-eyed, Melody listens intently as he explains how deeply he worried that his thoughtless words might have hurt her feelings. When he bows low in sincere apology, a flustered Melody frantically waves her hands, insisting she is completely fine and that he did nothing wrong. She looks down and gently cradles the colorful blossoms, deeply moved by the mailman's unexpected and heartwarming kindness. The purple-haired man gently explains that having a niece her age made him realize how deeply unsettling it must feel to lack a special day. Amidst a scenic background of falling leaves and envelopes, the mailman suggests she choose a special day for her birthday to celebrate with friends. He beams with a warm, bright smile, assuring her that every single child deserves to feel cherished on a special day. Melody tightly squeezes the beautiful bouquet to her chest, her heart swelling with a newfound desire to experience a real celebration. Looking at a happy photo of the mailman's lively family, she reflects on the simple, ordinary joy she has never once experienced in her life. A bittersweet feeling washes over the young girl as she gazes down at the beautiful flowers, lost in deep contemplation. A gentle voice suddenly breaks her train of thought, reminding her of another crucial matter she still needs to address. She turns to see the handsome, blonde young Master Claude standing nearby, ready to depart for their highly anticipated errand. Resolving to keep her private emotional struggles hidden, Melody puts on a brave face, determined to handle her family matters quietly. The grand carriage passes through the majestic stone archway of the castle, bringing them closer to their fateful destination. As Melody steps down from the carriage, her red-haired friend's ominous warning about avoiding her mother echoes back in her mind. Walking down the elegant corridor, she mentally apologizes to Isaiah, resolved to go through with the meeting regardless of his warning. Sensing her deep anxiety, the protective blonde noble Claude immediately asks if she is feeling all right. Reassuring him, she holds his hand and expresses profound gratitude that the Duke granted permission for this difficult visit. Claude gently offers to act as her formal noble escort, determined to shield her from any disrespectful treatment. Accepting her decision, Claude promises to wait inside the carriage, refusing to relax in a luxury guest room while she is suffering. Claude flashes a brilliant, closed-eye smile, playfully teasing that his uncomfortable wait should motivate her to return quickly. She warmly reflects on his highly unique and eccentric way of offering comfort to those under immense pressure. With her spirits lifted, Melody prepares to step forward alongside the heavily armored knight guiding her into the facility. Smiling brightly, she waves a warm goodbye to Claude, promising to return from her visit as soon as possible. From his position by the carriage, Claude glances back and catches a fleeting glimpse of a dark figure stealthily moving down the corridor. The blonde young master's blue eyes widen in sharp suspicion as he realizes something highly unusual is going on. Melody follows the armored guard down the sunlit hall, marveling at the sheer grandeur of what is supposed to be a prison. Pauses to look out the elegant arched windows, completely captivated by the serene and beautiful garden outside. She realizes her mother's luxurious confinement in this palace-like noble prison is entirely thanks to the Duke's immense generosity. Just as she reflects on this unexpected luxury, a mysterious hand suddenly reaches out from the dark alcove beside her. Before she can react, she is violently grabbed and pulled backward into the dark shadows. Safe in the dark corridor, her crimson-haired friend Isaiah holds her tightly, successfully shielding her from the guard's line of sight. Melody gasps in absolute shock as she looks up, instantly recognizing her mysterious childhood companion. Isaiah immediately places a finger over his lips, silencing her before she can make a single sound. He warily monitors the corridor as the armored guard continues walking, completely unaware of their presence. Without wasting a single second, Isaiah firmly grabs her wrist, preparing to drag her away. He pulls the bewildered Melody along as they sprint down the hallway, leaving the panicked guard behind, shouting out her name in confusion. Melody struggles to keep up as she runs, frantically demanding to know what he is planning to do. Looking back, Isaiah urgently explains that he is leading her through a secret knight's route to escape the facility without being detected by the guards. In a sudden whirlwind of panic, the crimson-haired boy Isaiah violently drags the brown-haired girl Melody down the stone corridor, demanding to know if the nobility forced her here. Isaiah fiercely reminds her of his capital upbringing to prove he cannot be easily deceived by noble manipulations. Glares of intense hatred shadow Isaiah's face as he bitterly curses the nobles for daring to bring Melody to such a dark prison. Squeezing her wrist with uncontrolled panic, Isaiah's tight grip accidentally causes a distressed Melody to cry out in pain. Instantly snaps back to his senses, a horrified Isaiah releases her arm and frantically begs her forgiveness for hurting her. Melody gently cradles her sore wrist and calmly explains that visiting this place was entirely her own voluntary decision. Refusing to accept her explanation, an agitated Isaiah desperately pleads with her to stop lying about her abusive mother. Melody stands firm and directly meets his gaze, resolutely asserting that she is telling him the absolute truth. Gritting his teeth in deep emotional frustration, the red-haired boy is utterly devastated by her quiet confirmation. Isaiah's internal fury reaches a boiling point as he rejects the idea of honoring her mother's selfish final request. Isaiah desperately grabs her shoulders, passionately vowing that he will never let her mother hurt her again. The sudden heavy echo of footsteps walking down the stone stairs interrupts their highly emotional confrontation. The handsome, blonde young Master Claude suddenly appears, advising Isaiah to step away from Melody before he is forced to pull noble rank. Claude stands regally under a chilling blue light, coldly demanding that the uninvited intruder step back immediately. A tense, silent pause hangs heavily over the corridor as the two boys lock eyes in a fierce standoff. Claude, polite but unyielding, firmly demands that Isaiah step aside and cease causing a scene. Isaiah glares back with absolute defiance, his expression heavily shadowed with raw hostility toward the young master. Claude remains completely calm and silent, listening impassively as Isaiah vents his deep resentment against the nobility. Welling back to Melody, Isaiah desperately begs her to look the young master in the eye and refuse the visit. Isaiah reminds her that she possesses the ultimate power to decide her own path, pleading for her to walk away. Looking down with a heavy heart, she emotionally reflects on how Isaiah has always stood by her side to defend her from harm. Melody remains silent as she processes her childhood friend's desperate pleas. Claude stands silently in the background, keeping his gaze fixed on Melody as he waits for her decision. Claude's stern expression suddenly softens, offering her a warm, supportive smile to ease her visible anxiety. Melody is deeply touched by the blonde young master's silent reassurance, gaining the strength she desperately needs. Melody turns to Isaiah and gently reveals that even the Duke initially opposed her coming to this facility. She firmly explains that the decision to face her mother is entirely her own choice. As Melody stands with absolute resolve, the red-haired boy Isaiah looks on, completely stunned by her unwavering stance. Claude gently holds up a hand to keep his guards at bay while Isaiah frantically asks why she would ever want to meet her tormentor. Raising his voice in desperation, Isaiah demands to know if she has simply forgotten the agonizing life she used to live. Isaiah's fierce anger begins to crumble, revealing a vulnerable boy who is deeply terrified of seeing his friend hurt again. Melody gazes into his eyes, seeing his tearful reflection as he softly admits he only wishes for her happiness. Tenderly holding his hand, Melody proudly declares that she is going to see her mother because she is finally taking complete control of her own life. She beams with a brilliant, comforting smile to prove to him that she is strong enough to handle this confrontation. Isaiah stares at her in absolute shock, silenced by her incredible emotional growth and mature resolve. A gentle inquiry about her well-being echoes in the quiet space between them. A nostalgic memory flashes back to their childhood, where a protective Isaiah fiercely vowed to protect a weeping Melody from their tormentors. The memory reveals a younger Isaiah deeply affected by her tears, always striving to be her ultimate shield. Back in the present, Isaiah looks at her with glossy, emotional eyes, finally realizing his fragile friend has grown into a strong young lady. A quiet, peaceful understanding finally settles between the two childhood friends in the grand hallway. Seizing the moment of calm, Claude commands his armored knights to step forward and secure the intruder. The heavy armored guards gently but firmly guide a compliant Isaiah away as Melody watches him go with a worried gaze. Panic instantly strikes Melody as she frantically asks about Isaiah's fate, only to be told that his punishment rests solely with the Duke. With the trespasser dragged away, the protective young Master Claude shields his companion Melody from the lingering shadows of danger. As the captured intruder is led away in the background, Claude offers reassurance, but Melody guiltily confesses she broke her promise to avoid her mother. Claude firmly points out that her dishonesty does not excuse her childhood friend's violent grip on her wrist. She gently cradles her reddened wrist, realizing the physical toll of the chaotic confrontation. Claude urges her to treat her injury first, but she steadfastly refuses to turn back now. A sudden realization flashes through her eyes as she processes his unwavering attentiveness. Melody questions how he found her, and Claude reveals he saw the red-haired boy pursue her. The young master seizes the opportunity to request her presence in his study under the guise of reviewing records. The head guard bows deeply in apology, offering to escort the young lady to her destination safely. With a supportive smile, Claude encourages her to take the final steps alone while he guards the exit. A warm touch and a gentle promise send her forward into the belly of the prison. The dramatic reunion begins with the imprisoned woman cackling in ecstatic relief at the sight of her daughter. The caged woman desperately tries to launch into a tale about a mysterious priest she encountered. Melody attempts to intervene, but her terrified mother refuses to let her speak, driven by fear of damnation. Melody remains entirely silent as her mother rants about the ominous threats written in unreadable scripts. A profound realization dawns that her mother is only seeking to relieve the crushing weight of her sins. Recalling wise counsel, Melody understands her mother's sudden religious panic is born entirely from execution day terror. The dark truth settles in. This meeting was never about remorse, but a selfish pursuit of peace of mind. As her mother desperately tries to defend herself, Melody ruthlessly cuts her off with an icy warning. Melody sets her boundaries, asserting complete control over the conversation. She stands her ground with silent, unbreakable authority. The woman's mask slips, revealing the raw fury bubbling just beneath her desperate facade. Flying into a violent rage, the mother shrieks through the bars at her daughter's defiance. Melody mentally sighs as her mother immediately resorts to demands of blind obedience. Recognizing her mother's toxic pattern of deflection, Melody firmly reiterates her strict conditions for this visit. With absolute authority, she delivers a crushing ultimatum that she will leave immediately if her mother refuses to cooperate. As her mother falters, Melody silently rejects the need for any apologies or performative remorse. Melody reveals her ultimate goal to live a peaceful life, presenting her mother with one single condition to make it happen. Her piercing gaze locks onto her target, ready to demand the answers she came for. The caged woman shrinks back in terror as she faces her daughter's cold resolve. Asked about her daughter's birthday, the mother frantically stammers excuses about her past exile and chaotic mental state. Ignoring the pathetic excuses, Melody demands to know her true birthday once and for all. The painful confession falls flat as Melody realizes she was always just an obstacle to her mother. The mother desperately attempts to trivialize her ignorance while Melody confronts the devastating truth of her existence. Accepting the painful truth, the young girl quietly prepares to turn her back on the past. As Melody turns to leave, her mother desperately screams at her to stay, wielding her final execution as leverage. Her maternal concern disintegrates into pure venomous rage as she screeches through the iron cage. Standing silently, the young girl takes the brutal verbal assault as her mother confesses her deepest resentment. The memory of a harsh winter storm frames the mother's toxic demands for gratitude. A bleak flashback reveals the mother's desperate struggle to find shelter while heavily pregnant in the freezing cold. The frantic memory of escaping the palace guards highlights the thin line between life and death during Melody's birth. With her mother's desperate screams echoing behind her, Melody calmly walks away, finally free of the chains of her past. Walking away, Melody takes her final decisive steps toward absolute freedom. With a final silent farewell, she leaves the dark prison behind. Taking a deep breath, she gathers her courage for a brand new tomorrow. Moving forward, she steps lightly toward a life of her own choosing. Behind her, her mother grips the bars in absolute shock as she walks away. Melody ignores her mother's desperate, angry screams, pleading with her to stop. The mother's desperate facade crumbles into pure rage, hurling venomous threats of violence. Completely unfazed by the toxic screaming, Melody continues walking away without looking back. Walking down the bright hallway, she leaves her dark past in the shadows. She suddenly stops as she spots someone unexpected waiting for her. There stands the blonde young Master Claude, watching her with quiet, gentle concern. Touched by his dedication, Melody smiles, realizing he stayed behind just for her. She mentally notes that beneath Claude's cold demeanor lies a deeply caring heart. Claude gently asks if she is all right, warmly praising her incredible bravery. Smiling warmly, Claude reaches out a supportive hand to help guide her forward. Melody looks up, slightly flustered as she wonders about a sudden invitation. Taking his hand, she senses he wants to convey something far deeper than words. Hand in hand, the caring young master happily leads her out of the prison. His gentle words offer her the warmth of a true home at last. Scene shifts to the Grand Duke Baldwin mansion under the quiet night sky. Inside his private study, the black-haired Duke quietly unwinds after a long day. Hearing a polite knock on the door, the Duke calmly invites them in. Melody sheepishly peeks inside, apologetic for interrupting him, but announcing her safe return. The Duke warmly welcomes her back, suggesting they sit down for a talk. Fearing the worst, Melody immediately begs him not to punish her childhood friend. The Duke notes that the red-haired boy got in her way during the visit. Nervous, Melody frantically explains that the boy was only trying to protect her. She takes the blame, defending Isaiah's actions as a misunderstanding of her wishes. The Duke points out that her friend's overprotective nature stems from lingering misunderstandings. Melody softly admits that even long-term relationships require effort to truly understand each other. He firmly asserts that a proper punishment is necessary to maintain family order. He reiterates that interfering with noble affairs cannot go completely unchecked. Holding his teacup, the Duke remains resolute about enforcing the household rules. Seeing her distress, the Duke reassures her that the punishment will be light. Relieved by his leniency, Melody thanks him and the Duke awkwardly clears his throat. Melody blushes in surprise, realizing she hadn't even thought about the changing season. He casually presents a boutique catalog, claiming it was delivered to him by accident. Melody takes the catalog, secretly noticing the pages look well-read and heavily studied. She wonders if the Duke is actually searching for clothes for young Loretta. Excited, Melody confidently promises to pick out the absolute best outfits for Loretta. The Duke hides his face in sheer embarrassment while his butler chuckles amusedly. Clutching the catalog, Melody happily walks downstairs to begin her new mission. She enthusiastically resolves to find the perfect winter outfit for her dear friend. In her imagination, a precious young Loretta models a cute pink winter cloak. But delighted by her imagination, Melody squeals, eager to see Loretta look like a winter fairy. A sudden sound startles Melody as Claude wheels in a heavy cart loaded with books. Melody notices the cart is filled with historical records, sparking instant dread. Melody panics, realizing that completing these records will completely ruin her evening plans. Claude proudly asks if she is grateful for his escort, while Melody sighs in exhaustion. Melody reluctantly agrees to help carry the books, while a smug Claude thanks her. Claude clarifies that this research is for a deeply important personal interest. Claude hands a specific purple book to Melody, asking if it is what she has been searching for. Melody opens the remarkably clean, magically preserved ancient tome. She gasps, realizing the glowing page contains records from her exact birth date. Stunned by the discovery, Melody's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. Melody quietly examines the document from behind, completely absorbed in its contents. Claude points out the anomaly of a severe winter storm during that spring season. Melody notes that despite the severe snow, someone deliberately removed the corresponding local records. Claude explains that the royal knights acted with an unusual level of fear during that search. Claude's intense blue eyes narrow as he ponders the dark mystery. The quiet tension in the room deepens as the mystery unfolds. Blushing nervously, Melody ponders her mother's desperate flight from the knights. Claude notes that if her mother was pregnant, the guards should have prioritized saving her instead of chasing her. Claude analyzes the missing records, questioning why the guards were scouring the village during a blizzard. Claude suggests that someone must have ordered the villagers to shut out the pregnant woman. A strict decree warns villagers never to let strangers inside their homes. Melody is shocked to learn that a superior knight ordered this extreme precaution. Claude explains that such absolute orders only occur when royalty passes through a village. A historic illustration depicts a royal carriage traveling through a snow-covered town. An assassin once infiltrated a village home near the royal path. The tragic tale reveals the assassin slaughtered the host family to conceal his presence. Following the assassin's execution, a strict protective rule was established for all royal routes. The rule forbade opening doors to strangers in villages along the royal route. But a sudden crash scatters books everywhere as Claude mentions the time of Melody's birth. Claude retrieves a glowing volume, revealing the Emperor's younger brother was in the territory. Melody stares in absolute shock at the glowing emblem on the book's cover. A pink gemstone cross shines brightly on the ancient ceiling. The magnificent imperial emblem of the royal family is revealed. Winking playfully, Claude proudly displays the forbidden royal record. Claude casually claims he merely stretched the rules slightly. Melody yells in panic, realizing the young master has completely crossed the line. Melody warns him that Imperial Palace security would normally prevent anyone from seeing this. Cloud beams proudly, sparkling with mischievous delight. Melody realizes with absolute horror that she is now his accomplice. Melody nervously asks if she truly doesn't have to copy records today. She desperately seeks confirmation while imagining Loretta in cute winter clothes. Reality crashes down as Melody realizes she has officially become his partner in crime. Unlocking a dangerous secret, Claude outlines 3 strict conditions regarding Melody's mysterious birth. Melody intently listens as he reveals the second condition was an unseasonal heavy blizzard. While Claude optimistically suggests declaring that day their new anniversary, Melody hesitates with doubt. Pointing out massive contradictions, Melody questions if her mother's memories of the capital were false. Startled by her own theory, Melody flushes as Claude prompts her about her true expectations. Under a shimmering canopy of light, a gentle, unspoken understanding blossoms between the two. Claude gazes down at her with a remarkably soft, affectionate smile of encouragement. Looking up, Melody's heart flutters as his warmth pushes away her lingering fears. A sudden wave of shyness washes over the beautifully flustered young girl. Fidgeting nervously, Melody finally gathers her courage to ask why he is so kind to her. Claude playfully admits his kindness is entirely intentional, leaving a puzzled Melody demanding to know why. Claude teases that upsetting her would break Loretta's heart, proving Melody already knew the answer. Claude dramatically feigns sadness over his second-class sibling status, leaving Melody completely speechless at his theatrical antics. Shifting his tone, Claude presents her with a beautifully ornate book as a well-deserved reward. Melody stares down in awe at the spectacular golden imperial emblem on the cover. Opening the book, Melody wonders if Claude's comforting words gave her the strength to look. Her eyes trail across the long-hidden truth, triggering an overwhelming wave of emotion. Standing alone, Melody finally confronts the long-hidden secrets of her painful past. A sudden stark memory breaks through her thoughts with absolute clarity. Cruel whispers from her childhood village echo, branding her as a criminal's despised daughter. Terrorized by baseless rumors, the village children fled from her in pure, unbridled fear. A young Melody remembers being excluded, with children mocking her unknown birth date. The spiteful village boys laughed, claiming a worthless orphan like her had no right to a birthday. Despite the cruel taunts, she clung to the single rumor that she was born in Sprim. Overwhelmed by the painful memories, Melody quietly weeps behind the ancient book. Seeing her tears, a concerned Claude asks if she is feeling down, which she weakly denies. Claude watches her with a look of profound gentleness and quiet understanding. His warm smile silently promises her that she is never alone again. Peeking out from behind the book, Melody emotionally realizes her true birthday has been found. Tears of absolute happiness stream down her face as she smiles radiantly. A gentle hand reaches out to softly wipe away her tears. Claude tenderly brushes away her tears, comforting her with his quiet presence. The Grand Duke Baldwin mansion stands peaceful under the warm morning sun. Bright autumn leaves frame a quiet study, indicating the passing of time. A adorable hand-drawn illustration wishes Melody a happy and joyful birthday celebration. Standing by the window, Melody gazes happily at the marked calendar page. A gentle voice suddenly calls out, pulling her away from her thoughts. The servant politely announces that an unexpected visitor has arrived to see her. Melody turns around with a bright, welcoming smile for her guest. Inside the drawing room, a visitor sits with highly tense, clenched hands. Isaiah sits stiffly on the sofa, trembling with immense nervous energy. He visibly flinches as the sound of the door opening alerts him. Melody walks in with a warm greeting, instantly startling the nervous young man. Looking up at her, Isaiah stutters her name, completely overwhelmed with intense guilt. Instantly dropping to his knees, Isaiah comically weeps and begs her for forgiveness. Isaiah frantically confesses his mistakes, admitting he was incredibly overprotective and failed to listen. Squeezing his eyes shut, he passionately reiterates how deeply sorry he is for his actions. Desperate to make amends, Isaiah offers to let Melody hit him to relieve her anger. Amused by his extreme antics, Melody smiles at him with warm affection. Isaiah looks up in complete shock, stunned by her gentle, forgiving response. Shadows of suspicion vanish in an instant as a tender request demands her hand. Reaching out with unexpected care, the young master scolds her neglect and insists on treating her injured hand. Startled by his sudden concern, she learns his secret visit is driven by worry over their mutual friend. Realizing high stakes are on the line, she vows to protect Isaiah from impending disaster. He fiercely rejects her self-sacrificing resolve, demanding she stop taking such ridiculous risks. Stepping up with fiery pride, the young master declares it is his duty alone to protect his guest. Blushing furiously, he deflects his embarrassment by turning the focus back to her unresolved question. She boldly confronts him about his constant demands for tea, leaving him utterly speechless and cornered. A heavy, agonizing silence fills the space as he struggles with deep, unspoken feelings. Confession hangs in the air as he begins to address the dark sins of his past. The painful memories of his cruel rejection flash back, revealing the deep scars of their first meeting. He confesses that rampant deception at the mansion had blinded him, forcing him to mistake her for a fraud. Regret weighs heavily on his shoulders as he prepares to swallow his stubborn pride. Breaking down in tears, the young master passionately begs for her forgiveness, completely shedding his arrogant exterior. She stands completely frozen, deeply touched by the raw sincerity of his unexpected apology. With a gentle smile, she realizes his expressive nature makes his true, kind heart incredibly easy to read. He softly pleads with her to stay, confessing a deep-seated fear of returning to a life of isolation. A sudden realization hits him, prompting him to speak of his brother's usual absence at the academy. Legend speaks of the family's third son, a prodigy born with the rare power to become a legendary mage. Destined for greatness, his entire childhood was consumed by the mysterious confines of the magic tower. Left entirely alone, the young master had desperately yearned for a sibling, only to be met by frauds. Behind the grand window, a lonely boy watched the world, desperate for a genuine connection. The pieces fall into place as she finally understands the tragic source of his initial hostility. A wave of deep empathy washes over her, softening her heart toward his troubled past. The quiet moment shatters as he demands to know how she possesses forbidden knowledge of his brother. Panicking over her slip of the tongue, she scrambles to cover her tracks as his suspicions rise. He deduces that only his unusually sociable brother could have leaked such classified family secrets. She desperately denies the claim, insisting his brother would never share such highly confidential information. Pride shines in his eyes as he boasts about his brother's destiny to rule the magic tower. She contemplates the heavy burden of the Baldwin name as the future of the tower looms. As time ticks away, the sheer magnitude of their family's looming political triumph becomes undeniable. Shifting back to reality, he demands to know exactly what she was muttering under her breath. Deep in thought, she admits that enduring this chaotic family is her only path to her true goal. Facing an uncertain future, she questions if staying at the mansion is truly her destined path. Clenching her skirt, she resolves that she must eventually leave and find a place of her own. Sensing her sudden distraction, a heavily blushing young master sheepishly urges her to finish wrapping his hand. Before she can move, a sudden chilling sound outside the door freezes them both in sheer terror. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echo down the corridor, heading straight toward their secret hideout. The door handle slowly turns, signaling their time has officially run out. Panic surges through their veins as the heavy wooden doors slowly creak open. A paralyzing dread takes hold as they brace themselves for the ultimate confrontation. The door swings open to reveal a highly unexpected figure standing in the doorway. The young master furiously scolds the intruder for disregarding his orders and risking their discovery. The tension diffuses into bickering, leaving her amused by how terribly the young master hides his true worries. Suddenly, the red-haired man's eyes widen as he spots something hidden in the shadows. He slowly approaches the massive bookshelf, questioning if they have finally located the legendary forbidden records. Standing before the ancient archive, he confirms these volumes hold the deep, long-lost secrets of their heritage. But what dark truths lie hidden within these pages? The mystery deepens as the red-haired youth beckons Mel closer with a gravity that chills the air. He suggests a thief took the records, shocking Ronnie and Melody to their core. The red-haired youth points out that the June record from 6 years ago is completely missing. He explains that only this specific file is gone, prompting Melody to ask if someone simply borrowed it. Melody reasons that a borrowed book would surely leave an empty gap behind. Determined to find the truth, Melody inspects the massive bookshelves closely. She notices the remaining books are perfectly rearranged to hide any missing volume. Melody concludes with absolute certainty that the record was never there to begin with. She recalls past conversations with Ronnie and Claude about how precious family secrets are hidden away. She struggles to decipher the hidden meaning behind their cryptic warnings. Melody directly questions Ronnie about his reasons for choosing the June record, and he admits it was a game from the start. Ronnie reveals that his brother was the one who taught him the game. The memory of Claude flashes in Melody's mind, raising her suspicions. A sudden, shocking realization strikes Melody like a bolt of lightning. She remembers the origin story of the Duke and Duchess's strategic contract marriage. Despite developing genuine affection for each other, the couple was bound to honor their separation agreement. An overwhelming sense of sorrow echoes from their painful past. The tragic reality of their inevitable separation looms heavy. Melody ponders the devastating impact of this secret contract on the family. She deduces that the Duke hid the June record because that was when the separation occurred. Melody suspects Claude created this game to secretly investigate the events from 6 years ago. Framing the investigation as a childish game serves as Claude's perfect cover story. Melody's train of thought is suddenly cut short by an ominous presence. The trio instantly freezes as a spine-chilling pressure fills the quiet archive. A trembling Ronnie asks what is wrong as a dark aura rises behind him. Melody and the red-haired youth frantically warn Ronnie about the danger directly behind him. Well, that's one way to get caught past bedtime. Ronnie turns around to find a furious headmaid screaming at them. The three kids tearfully beg for mercy as their late-night mission is officially busted. The next morning, a thoroughly sleep-deprived Melody struggles to keep her eyes open at her desk. Ronnie suffers a brutal punishment as the angry maid forces him to eat raw carrots for breakfast. Melody silently apologizes to Ronnie while Claude relaxes comfortably across the room. Claude quietly notes that Melody is helping him without voicing a single complaint. Claude's intense gaze makes Melody flinch nervously in her seat. Melody laughs off his suspicion, claiming she is simply getting used to the work. Claude playfully asks who else besides his brother would have told her about Jeremiah. Melody panics internally, realizing Ronnie completely misunderstood the source of her information. Melody laments that Ronnie mistakenly believed Claude was her informant. Claude chuckles, guessing that Ronnie simply got overly excited and ranted on his own. Claude explains that Ronnie rarely gets to discuss Jeremiah, which explains his sudden burst of energy. Melody happily agrees, expressing how proud she is of her brothers. Claude drops a bombshell question, asking why Ronnie rarely has the chance to talk about Jeremiah. Melody recalls the eerie, unsettling feeling she felt when first entering the mansion. The heavy, suffocating weight of the family's unspoken rules hangs in the air. Melody realizes that absolutely no one in the Baldwin family ever mentions Jeremiah's name. She deduces that the Duke implicitly banned the name to avoid reopening old, painful wounds. Claude gently points out that simple truths are often the ones that hurt the most. Claude assures her that the tragic truth has no painful effect on him. Claude declares that true relationships are built on sharing deep secrets, leaving Melody utterly captivated by his words. Melody boldly confronts Claude, demanding to know if he plans to use his leverage to command her forever. Her frustration boils over as she fumes over his relentless chores, fiercely vowing never to be fooled by his tricks again. Instead of getting angry, Claude looks on with a tender smile, silently amused by her innocence. The playful atmosphere shatters as Claude cryptically warns her that their peaceful days together are swiftly coming to an end. Leaning over her desk, Claude gently reminds her that her presence at the estate is only temporary. Stunned, Melody freezes in quiet disbelief as the looming reality of their inevitable separation sinks in. Claude offers a soft, bittersweet smile, confirming the painful truth she desperately wanted to deny. The final blow lands when he announces his immediate departure tomorrow, leaving her alone to face an uncertain future.